There's nothing on email.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Drake. Here. Trustee Jackson Miller.
Here.
Trustee Donnelly.
Present.
Trustee Dickinson.
Here.
And we heard from trustee Edmondson that she would be out for this.
Okay. At this point in time, I'd like to convene to close session.
Off and running. Good
Thank
job,
you.
President. Right.
I just look at Amanda. If she gives me a frown, I'm not doing something right. Um, I would, our regular president, Callie, is unavailable this evening. I'm going to take over the duties, so I hereby call this meeting to order. Yeah, these, right? So reporting
Let's see. Yeah, report out. Oh, yeah, you're right. Pledge of allegiance. Sorry.
Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. All right, so we have a wonderful student come do this. All right, look at that smile.
Right, Board of Trustees, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a great representative from Main Street School, and that is third grader Melissa Juarez Rivas. And you can put that there if you want to, Melissa. And he knows what to do
All right.
when you're ready.
Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now she will read the district mission statement.
Staff, student, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
So I asked staff for a good representative from Main Street School, and Miss Martin is also here.
All right, yeah.
Recommended, Melissa, so I checked in with Melissa, and she said she was willing to do it. Parents were able to get her here, so that's why she's here tonight.
Wonderful. Well, Melissa, just so you know, we've had some wonderful things written about you. And if it's okay, I would ask Mr. Ted Donnelly to read them.
Yes, we met before. I think it's pretty cool. You got a principal and your teacher say pretty great things about you. That's wonderful. Don't stop smiling now, okay? Try not to. When I met Melissa, she had the beaming smile and she was a lot of fun to talk to. So, Melissa Rivas. Melissa was nominated by her teacher, Mrs. Martin. Her favorite school subjects are math and art. When she is not in school, she enjoys playing soccer and swimming. When she is older, she would like to be a doctor. Melissa is extremely hardworking and takes her schoolwork seriously with a smile. She is respectful and kind to everyone, and this makes her very well liked by her classmates. Melissa has a sweet nature and knocks on the door almost every morning to greet me at school with a good morning hug. I bet that's Mrs. Martin, right? I can't think of a nicer way to start the day. Wow, I think that's awesome. Wow. That's really, really, really great.
Melissa, if it's okay with you, can we all ask you some questions? All right, all right. Do you want to start?
So what is it about being a doctor that excites you?
I can do medicine and like save people.
Awesome. And you play sports? Are you on a team?
Yeah.
What team are you on?
Brother.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, I know some people and some people in my family even get kind of nervous and scared going to the doctor. So if I ever had a doctor that had the kind of energy that you have, like a big smile, the kind of person who like greets their teacher with a hug, like that would feel so reassuring, to someone who's maybe a little scared to see a doctor. So whatever you end up being in life, like having that that positive attitude is so, so helpful to everyone around you. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about art. Sounds like you like art. What's your favorite kind of art? Like for you to do, for you to create, like painting or drawing or? Sorry? You like to do things with flowers? Nice, nice. Hey, thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
Okay, well, so when we talked at school, you mentioned you like reading. And what book are you reading again?
Document?
That's it. But you're also writing a story too. I know, and that's Pizza Dog, right? And so when you're done with that, I would love to have it shared with the board. I really would love to read that too. I think that's amazing.
I got a really simple question. We live right next to the ocean, so do you prefer to swim in the pool or in the ocean?
Yes.
Nice, all right, all right. Just so you know, Melissa, we have some wonderful presents for you and your brothers too. If they would like to come pick something out, we have some notebooks, some little tchotchkes, some fun things. So you guys are welcome to go to town and pick whatever you want. Oh, and can we get a picture of with you and your family, your parents and Mr. B and Kristen? Everybody come up for a photo? That's okay?
There's also one thing very important, your pets.
I was gonna say.
Now you have an alligator? No.
Cool.
Yeah.
In Florida?
You have any pets?
Yes.
What are they?
I had 2 cats, but now I have 1 cat.
Mm.
And I have 3 fishes, and I have 4 birds.
1 cat, 3 fishes, and 4 birds.
And that
Wow.
cat likes looking at the birds, right?
Yeah. Did you used to have 5 birds?
Oh.
What's your cat's name?
Dahlia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Will you come up here and we'll get a
Picture time.
picture? If we got
Parents, come on.
your wonderful
Teacher.
write-up and certificate right up here, Melissa. And then you grab a notebook there for your writing and your stories, okay? And then, and also right here from the board, there's a certificate for the bookstore.
Oh.
The 2 birds, so you keep on reading, okay?
You guys going this way?
Yeah. There's this picture. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We just go.
Okay.
What do you think?
Where's the drums? Lighting up the room, huh? It's good. I was listening to those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like it.
You get everywhere.
They're nice.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, come on in, let's get snacks in here, yeah. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. You guys are the needy.
Yeah, congratulations, parents, what an amazing daughter.
Elias.
Yeah, like Paul McCartney, right?
Very cool.
Nice. All right. Do some writing, huh? Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go. Right there.
This is me on sugar. Watch out.
And I saw that Pete's coffee.
Yeah. It was half cast.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Great meeting all of you. Have fun. Bye.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
Well, I'm going to make a motion with changes.
Okay.
I would really like to bring item 9D before 9A, which is our resolution, acknowledging our homeless students. So that will be 9D before 9A, but not before. Yeah,
Just to have it earlier in the.
yeah.
I
There's a first.
Do we
one,
have
yeah.
people coming for that or just so I'm?
Yeah, I just like to have it.
Oh, you got it.
It's something I personally think is important.
Certainly.
Prioritize.
Okay. Anything else? Or-
No.
Is that a motion and then you want a
Yeah,
second?
yeah.
Okay, I make a second. I'll second adopting the agenda with that move.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Right, I'd like to report out of closed session regarding stipulated expulsion case number 2023-24-01. The board approved extending the period of expulsion through January 6th, 2025, pending successful completion of the student's rehabilitation plan. And there we go. So next is the consent agenda. Consider approving the minutes of September 18th, 2024, the regular board meeting, and the September 25th, 2024 special board meeting. All in favor?
Make a motion.
Oh, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
I'll second it.
Everybody approving?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody not approve that? Okay, motion passed.
By the hair.
So, down to, so all of those were just approved, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay, so down to action item 5A, consider approval of the proposed district representative to the Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA, Community Advisory Council, CAC.
In gratitude to the board for allowing us to move this one action item up so that we could honor the representative here, and I'll let Carissa do the introduction. Oh, well, it was in the right spirit.
Three students in our district. I have had the chance to know Lynette in many contexts as the MW, as a principal. She had students at Syracuse Gardens and as a director. As two students at New Brighton now and one still at the Gardens, and has been a really valuable partner. In that, you know, we have worked together. She asks for the good questions, sometimes hard questions, and that's really helpful for us when we think about our work and what we do to serve students. And so sometimes for me as a director, I think who are the people who will push us hard, but in the right direction for serving students. And so Lynette has graciously agreed to serve in that capacity, and I think we will be better for it.
This is an action item, so you want to ask for all the things, any comments, that sort of thing.
Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board?
There's nothing on email.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes, or can I get a motion approving
CAC representative.
the CAC representative?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve Lynette as our CAC representative with gratitude from the board. I will second.
Everybody who's in, say aye.
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 Anybody who's not in, say nay.
I like
Motion
that.
passed.
We're all in, huh?
We're all in.
Who's in?
All right, public communication. Okay, so we have three things. I believe there was something I'm supposed to read before
Yeah,
this.
the next page.
Okay. Members of the audience are welcome to address the Board of Trustees during public communication regarding items not listed on this agenda. For items not on the agenda, we request that you fill out one of the forms available at the sign-in register and submit it to the executive assistant to the superintendent prior to opening of the meeting. 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. The trustees cannot take action on these matters unless such matters are placed on a future agenda according to law. If the item is on the agenda, you will have the opportunity to speak at the time of the agenda item is discussed. Please address the board president. These proceedings are video recorded, Board Policy 9323. Board members shall hold the education of students above any partisan principle, group interest, or personal interest, Board Bylaw 9200. So the first is Mr. Kenji Taberi. He is representing Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary PK kindergarten parents. Thank you.
thanks to the board. Is the timer starting? I just want to make sure.
I'll start in.
Okay, great. Thank you, Superintendent.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna read from my phone here, some notes here that. So my name is Kenji DeBerry, and I'm a parent who recently enrolled, TK parent, at Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary. My wife and I were thrilled with the placement of our daughter in the TK program and the Santa Cruz Gardens, curriculum, which is equity and nature-based focused. Yet we want to raise an important and critical issue to the board around the staggered schedule of the TK program. It's proving to be extremely difficult and challenging for us and other working families at Santa Cruz Gardens to get our students the educational outcomes that we desire because of this staggered schedule. I'll get into some of these points here in more detail. Staggered start and release time via the early and late bird schedule is the only mechanism that allows for smaller class sizes. And I just want to emphasize that myself and other families do value and cherish the smaller classroom size ratios, and we believe that it does enhance learning outcomes for our students. Yet this staggered schedule also limits access to enrichment educational opportunities for late bird families. This legacy staggered schedule seems to have been very successful because of the implementation of AM care that was provided in the district, and that was subsequently ended around the time of the pandemic and has not returned since then. So of the 10 late bird students enrolled at Santa Cruz Gardens TK program, we surveyed with Principal Albano, 7 of them, which is about 70%, expressed a need for morning care. Of the 20 students enrolled in the TK program, 17 families have desired a preference for the early morning start time over the late start time. That's 85% of the enrolled families. So this is a clear signal that the majority of families currently enrolled need the children to attend class at an earlier start time. So for the past 10 weeks, our family and other Santa Cruz Garden working families at the TK and kindergarten students have consulted with school teachers, Principal Albano, CKC private provider, and now the board to address this situation. And from our conversations with other working families at Main Street and Porter Street, seems to be a more district-wide equity issue that we just want to raise awareness on. In sum, having a start time at 9:35 is not conducive for working families without morning care. I mean, that's the emphasis. It's no morning care. It's really challenging. It jeopardizes employment situation for a lot of parents, causes disruption and access issues for students in these education programs. So we have a number of remedies we'd love to discuss with Superintendent Turnbull to find a path toward resolving these equity and operational related services to maintain district enrollment rates and a strong early childhood education program for the district for current and future TK kindergarten students and working families across the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is D.R. Martin.
Switching hats today, quite a bit. I was here as a teacher, now I'm here as myself. Maybe I'll be here as an
Got different hats.
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I am here tonight to express my appreciation for the SoCal School District and its unwavering dedication to ensuring that LGBTQ students and their families feel safe and welcome in our communities. A significant amount of misinformation circulates about these students, yet I know that several board members, admin staff, teachers, and classified staff have taken advantage of inclusive opportunities to learn more firsthand, such as accepting invitations to attend the Queer Youth Leadership Awards. These opportunities give them the chance to meet these students and their families in person and to get them to know them better and hear their stories. Because they have taken the time to meet and listen to LGBTQ students and their families, our administration and staff understand the importance of using explicit welcoming signs to a historically targeted group. Our administration and staff also understand that some people recognize differences in themselves at a young age. Further, they know that acknowledging when young people share these facets of themselves, it is not sexualizing kids, as some seem to believe. In fact, it is acknowledging the legitimacy of their own understanding of themselves. Because they have taken time to meet LGBTQ students and their families and to hear their stories, our administration and staff understand that labeling kids is exactly the opposite of what teachers and staff are doing. Rather, we are letting them tell us who they are, and we are treating them with care and respect no matter how they come to us. Our administration and staff also know that these students These are students from a variety of cultural and faith backgrounds, white, Latino, Asian, Black, Indigenous, Christian, Jewish, atheist, or any other number of backgrounds, just like any other students and families we work with. Because they've taken the time to meet LGBTQ students and their families and to hear their stories, our administration and staff understand that the greatest expectation of these students and families, like the expectations of any other family, are that their children will be cared for, educated, kept safe, and accepted for who they are. I have heard at some board meetings and read on social media commentary that several people don't want to support these welcoming measures. Recently, it came to light that some of the people opposed to these measures don't want to make their identities public for fear that they might receive negative reactions. I hope those same individuals will reflect on how their fear of being outed might make them more empathetic to LGBTQ students who might feel the same. And yet these students are required to be in direct contact with the public school community every day, never knowing what reaction they might receive if they are exposed, not just for their opinions, but for who they are at their very core. Thank you to the SoCal School District, particularly the board members and administrative staff who have taken the time to step outside their own personal experiences so they can better understand the students and families they serve in our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Marilyn Garrett.
Hello again.
Hi, Marilyn.
Start off by asking, the most important thing is that schools are a safe and healthy learning and working environment. And I asked, does anyone disagree with that? I don't think so. So when you learn something is harming students and staff, that should be removed. By the way, I'm glad my back shirt about COVID-19 is on the screen. But I have an idea when people speak, put the platform there so you can see their face instead of their back, not just for me, but for everyone. So vaccines for health or profit, and I recall my daughter getting so ill from the DPT shot in 1969. There's a document here called Learn the Risk, Vaccines for Health or Profit by Brandy Vaughn. And it starts out with the medical freedom. It's a human right. First and foremost, mandatory vaccine laws are a violation of the basic human right to voluntary consent without coercion to any and all medical procedures, tests, experiments, and preventative measures. The Nuremberg Code was established following World War II based on the fact that all medical products have an inherent health risk and serious side effects, vaccines included. Brandy Vaughn is also referred to in this book, The Unfortunate Truth About Vaccines, Exposing the Vaccine Orthodoxy. Sorry, I'm so shaky, and I think it might probably do that to me too. So she was, and I got to meet her when she spoke here in Santa Cruz. She was a former pharmaceutical sales executive who left the company because of a quote, pharmaceutical industry's agenda to make and keep people sick for profit and take away our rights to decline medical procedures, treatments, and pharmaceutical drugs, unquote. In December 2020, Ms. Vaughn, the founder of the educational non-profit organization LearnTheRisk.com, previously counsel for vaccine safety, died unexpectedly at the age of 45 after being threatened. Because of her outspoken criticism of the pharmaceutical industry and numerous anonymous threats to her life, she wrote in December 2019 post, if something were to happen to me, it's foul play, and you know exactly who and why, given my work and mission in this life. I am also not accident prone. And I got the highest health rating possible when we went through a battery of medical checks.
Marilyn, I'm so sorry.
That's
By
all right.
law,
Her
You're-
co-workers have carried on, and I want to leave you some cards about the toxic ingredients in the vaccines. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For public comment.
Nothing on the Okay, moving on to the standing reports. Items from the superintendent and assistant superintendents.
Would like to start.
Can start. So auditors are here with us this week. They arrived today. They will be here through Friday to complete our year-end audit, which it won't be done by Friday. It'll a month later. So we've been busy with that. Went to incident command on Monday, and that's always interesting. You know, the scenarios they give us to play out is always super interesting and super engaging. And it's fun. The interaction that we have is you start thinking of all these different scenarios. Okay, yeah, we could do this, we could do that. And at this moment, what is working best? So that's really good to attend those. And our caretaker has been removed today. So we'll be doing the final walkthrough tomorrow. Kind of go through everything, see if there's anything else that needs to be removed. But that went super smooth. We're so surprised that they started this morning and they're pretty much out by about noon or so today.
I didn't even look when I parked, but it's the structure itself.
It's completely gone.
Oh my God, I feel like I just missed that.
Yeah, I know.
I drove right in front, yeah. Wow.
I think because it was kind of hidden behind the fence, but they had it in two pieces. They had it in the DO parking lot,
Wow.
and then they had the big semi come. They hauled it off. It went to Corlitas, I believe.
Huh.
And then they came back, picked up the other piece. We're so surprised that that tow truck came back so quick. They had for it, so we're like, they already dropped it off. They're already back. That's only been like half an hour. So it was really interesting. So,
Were there any changes to the incident and like evacuation plans or anything like that?
no, it's just kind of going over scenarios. So they give us an example scenario. And everyone, this time we're assigned to different roles, like we had the doers, we had the ICs and so forth. And so the scenario in this case was, heavy rainfall, flooding, power outages and so forth. Went on for a few days, down trees and so forth. How would we handle school? How would we handle the safety measures and everything? So.
Since a lot of the schools have changed, with the solar and everything else that we're doing, have we revamped or rediscussed any of the evacuation plans or what to do in an emergency based upon the sites changing?
They get updated every year. That's
They
the
do?
first
Yeah.
plan that the principals work on.
Yeah, and the incident command is more of an overall county. type of
Oh, okay.
meeting. Yeah, so it's just kind of to help us kind of go through scenarios that could possibly happen. So that way, at least we have something in the background. So if something does happen, like, okay, I do kind of remember this from training and read something similar we talked about. So it's helpful in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm actually gonna.
That's pretty fun.
I'm like deja vu is kicking in.
Run out.
I normally share a really large laundry list of the things that are going on the ed services side of the house, but because I have 4 fairly large tonight, I'm gonna reserve that until next time.
All right, just a few things here. Lots of great things going on in the district. I'll just share a few items that have taken place recently. On October 7th, we had the World Day of Bullying Prevention. Lots of students and staff wearing blue to honor the deep work that goes on all year. All the sites did great work. I happened to be at Main Street that day and I saw between the counselor and then PBIS aide Mandy Lopez did an amazing job. There were displays of everybody fits in here, and all the kids have done a puzzle piece, and there were activities out on the playground for students to participate on. So they really did a lot of fun work on that to represent all the deep, meaningful work that goes on throughout the year. So appreciative to all the staff who did such great work with that. We've been doing facility roadshows. And so that's what we call when kind of our team together with our architect and our bond consultant, Jim Dupre, who's come back in to help and knows the district so well. Steve, others, Allison goes, I go. And so we've been able to do 3 so far, everybody but Main Street, and we have them on the calendar. So it's really great because besides the view that the architects take when they go out and do it from their very professional analytical view, there's the people that live at the sites. Nobody knows the ins and outs better than those folks. So they give all the down and dirty things that we need to be aware of, in order to improve our sites to best optimize them for students and staff. So those roadshows have been great. Staff have been very positive, very open about the needs, and very positive in collaborating in that way. Last week, we had Capitola PD come out to New Brighton and do grade level assemblies for cyber safety, kind of in the bucket of cyber safety and digital citizenship. And so we really appreciate that partnership with Capitola PD. And it was perfect because right now we're in the middle of Digital Citizenship Week. So it was perfect timing. And then coming up next week is across the county College and Career Week, which is great. Monday night is career night, college and career night at Cabrillo College. And so New Brighton will be taking some of the avid students over there for opportunity. And there are lots of different colleges from around the state and country have booths there. They get to walk around and engage in that. So it's great for students to be getting that mindset already. And then all of our schools are doing wonderful activities. Lots of people contributing to that. I have to say a special shout out to our counselors who have just taken this concept and ran with it. You might remember on our kickoff day, that's one of the things. These are the 2 things I kind of said, if we can just have a little bit more focus on digital citizenship and especially career awareness. And boy, they have just taken it and run with it. There's career cafes happening. There's career days happening at both elementary and middle schools. A lot of engagement with Your Future as our business, bringing in career speakers. So just really appreciative of all the work that's being done on that front. That's all for me.
Thank you. Next on the list is a discussion regarding spring 2024 California Assessment Student Performance and Progress, CAASPP accountability data. Oh, sorry. Did I miss that? Oh, I totally missed that. I'm so sorry.
Feels like I've already made my.
No, not at all. Not at all. I love your reports. Please.
Should I come up there or sit here? Or-
You can, whichever one you feel more comfortable in.
Very loud voices. And I feel better that I can not try to beat a timer and speak at a normal pace. Good evening. I'm representing SEA tonight. SoCal Elementary had a great conference week last week with lots of parents showing up to meet with teachers and hear all about the great things the students are doing. Their 2nd grade classrooms are planning field trips to a number of different local farms, and their 3rd graders are soon headed to Wilder Ranch. The SoCal Elementary DLI program is currently planning a Dia de los Muertos celebration for November 5th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on campus, and everyone is invited to come. SoCal L would also like to warmly welcome their new night custodian, Fabricio Hernandez, to the SoCal L team. The staff are very grateful to have you with them. Santa Cruz Gardens also wrapped up a strong conference week. SCG kicked off October learning about structure and function. They also had a visit from Central Coast Community Energy last week at their assembly and got to learn a lot from them about how our local utilities work. Over at Main Street, and we forgot to add in about all the work Mandy did on anti-bullying week, so I'm glad you brought that up. Well, maybe sneak that into the official report. Over at Main Street, the team there wishes to acknowledge Sarah, the librarian, and several other staff members for their tireless efforts to get the library back into useful shape. The school recently had a school-wide assembly about the Main Street Way, and it featured a special appearance from local up-and-coming rapper. Oh, he's disappeared. Pretty okay, Principal Broader. Jessica was there, so.
I've got the video.
That's great.
Can you send that to the board?
Main Street is into their last week of the fall fundraiser and hope to get a lot of support for their programs for the school community through that fundraiser. They still have a long way to go to reach their goals, so please help out if you can. The Extended Learning Opportunities Program, ELOP, had some readjustment issues, but it is successfully up and running, and the homework clubs are proving to be very important for several students to have as a resource for support. Main Street is very glad that this is back in place and working well. And New Brighton reports that they too had an excellent conference week with lots of great student-led conferences. Many parents showed up to hear how their students are doing and how parents can play a crucial role in student success in middle school. Last week, the 7th graders were able to go to UCSC on a field trip, which was a wonderful way to get them some exposure to college and get them thinking about and motivated for their future. On a similar note, the counselors will be delivering presentations in the 8th grade flex classes starting next week to help 8th graders learn more about how to prepare for high school, what to expect academically, introduce students to the A through G's and other graduation requirements, and how to start exploring what college or career pathways may be of interest to them. That's our SEA report for this evening. Thank you.
Fantastic.
I have CSEAs.
Okay, great.
So this is from CSE President Enrique Domo. Tonight I'm headed to Wattsville to cheer on the New Brighton girls 8th grade basketball team. So there will not be a CSE representative at tonight's board meeting. Apologies to the board. But please let the board know that we appreciate the district office flexibility and clarification on the Title IX training that was scheduled for Friday, November 1st. All from CSE.
Thank you, Enrique. Items from trustees, reports on meetings and conferences attended or visits to schools and public communication.
I'll hop in. Thank you for the artwork. It always brightens up the room. Now this is from Main Street TK and the Chameleons.
Also Main Street TK, but.
Oh, okay.
Miss Lyons class.
What are they?
Miss Lyons class.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, thank you to the class for posting it. Makes it really nice and bright in here. And also I went to Main Street and met with our flag leader and had a great time. And also saw, no, Mr. B goes by Pretty Bee or Bebop Bee?
Pretty Bee. That's
Pretty
the
Bee.
stage name, Pretty Bee. Principal
Okay,
Robert
so
Pretty
I
Bee.
think when we have a Main Street presentation, he needs to come out and do the Main Street way. And it was fun watching that. And then Mark Lewis also had, they helped with that. Also, we went into his classroom and looked at that too. So that was a great video. And the campus is looking great. That's it.
Terrific. Thank you, Ted.
I'll just go down the line.
Sure.
Okay, I just have a couple of little things. I got to swing by the SoCal Multicultural Festival. That was all the way back September 20th, but I checked. I was like, oh, we didn't actually have a full board meeting. So yeah, so September 18th is our last meeting. Anyway, Multicultural Festival put on by Cradle to Career, right? It was in full swing. Lots of happy families, lots of amazing, delicious smelling food. I did not partake, but great mariachi band and just a lot of community spirit. And I had a chance to connect with some of the Homan School folks who were there selling Drive for Schools tickets, as all of our schools are doing now for their fundraisers. But it was nice to be on campus and see everyone enjoying that event. So that was fun. And then I also attended the Rainbow Conference at Watsonville High, so countywide conference back on September 28th. I attended last year as well and had a great learning opportunity, and I recommend it to everyone.
I also attended that conference, and it was a great showing by folks on the board and our team. And it was just really powerful to hear from some of the youth themselves. And it was very affirming that we had recently passed our equity policy. So proud of the work that we're doing to provide students that safe and respected environment.
Great. Thank you. Presentation regarding maintenance and facilities.
Okay, well, I would like to welcome Steve.
Who?
Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Maintenance and operations, and he will be going over a presentation.
Clicker?
George, maybe have it. Probably appear to the cloud.
Love that hoodie, by the way. So I don't know if I met all of you personally, but I've been, thank you, George.
Yeah.
With the district since 2012. Started as a maintenance guy. And then when Jim DeRee retired in 2020, I applied for the job and got the position. So I've really been enjoying working in the maintenance department and leading our team. So just a quick little presentation that I put together. There we go. So that's our team. John, Ian, Greg Feeney has been here for a long time. Kathy, Tammy, Enrique. And then Hector is our new guy who's been doing groundskeeping and has just been doing a great job, kind of picking up where Dawn left off. We had kind of a little bit of a tough spell there where we were not looking too pretty around the campuses, but things are doing much better. Hector's doing an amazing job, like I said. So thanks to these guys, they make me look good. Without them, yeah, things would not be running so good around here. So really appreciate them. These are some of our stats through this last fiscal year. A lot of work orders come in. We're pretty close, a little over 90-something%. There you go, 97.5. You can see that some of the schools like SoCal, the Gardens, put in a lot of work orders due to their aging. They're getting up there, need a lot of love, obviously. We're going for the bond, so we're really hoping for that. That will really help try to get some of these things fixed. That picture there is from the rooftop at Santa Cruz Gardens. That enclosure there is where the HVAC system sits. And 60 years, wow. that cage there has been around the HVAC unit. So yeah, and the roof too. So those are some of the things that we're going to try to shoot for to get done if the bond passes. So these are some of the things that we were working on over the summer. This lady did an amazing job. Her name escapes me right now, but she did a great job painting that over the summer. And it's really beautiful. I don't know if any of you have got a chance to see it. It's along the pathway, the Heart of SoCal pathway. And you can see it, which is just great. Turned out really nice. This is another summer project. I think, Ted, you were there that day.
I was.
Yeah. I don't think I got a picture.
Slide.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I have a picture of that. That may or may not be an employee of the district office. So that was a great day. That was actually one of my first projects that I was involved with from start to finish. So that's kind of cool. That, I finally got to get in on some of these projects. Jim kind of took the reins of the last big projects. And so we're starting a whole new phase of that. And I'm really looking forward to that. This was a summer project that we were not looking forward to. Things are looking really good though. Definitely a lot different from this picture. The library at Main Street, obviously, you guys all know about that. And this is what we're shooting for. This is what it looks like today, but it'll be looking a lot better once we get all those custom made bookshelves in there. These are temporary ones that we put them together, and really helping the kids out, getting in the, a learning space besides their classroom. Getting in the library is really important, I think. So that's a great thing. So these are some of the things that, just quickly going over, that we're going to need. Hopefully the bond passes and that we can really get on top of. Aging roofs, windows. The first two pictures on the left there are Main Street. The picture on the right there is the ceiling of one of the breezeways at New Brighton. The stucco's cracking. There's seams that are opening up, getting water damage. So those are definitely some of the things we want to address. And this is our new bus. You guys probably heard about that. Really stoked. Every day Enrique tells me how much he loves it, and he likes it more and more as he gets more miles in on it. So we're actually going for another bus. Another grant opportunity came up.
So we're gonna try to get 2 of them. We have an aging diesel one that's out there that is just been trucking along just fine, but it needs to be off the road here in another couple of years by the state. The state sends us things and say, hey, you've got a gross polluter or you got an old diesel bus. We want it off the road. Here's your opportunity to get an electric bus. So that's that. I know it's kind of short and sweet, but I wanted to give you guys some time if you had any questions too. So
We got all night.
all right, let's do this.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for all you do. I mean, I remember when you were put in there and, you know, great job so far. I love your opening slide of thanking your team. I think that's just a great sign of leadership. And certainly putting those pictures up there really just drives home the message, how important the bond is and how badly our schools need it. For all you YouTubers listening, please vote yes on Measure P. Am I allowed to do that?
Let's just say the need is identified.
Yeah,
Yeah, clearly.
Right. Is there a way to do temporary fixes on some of those things that,
That's what we've been doing.
okay, we just getting
Pretty
Band-Aids?
much since the day I started here. We're more reactionary than proactive. Goals are, you know, obviously we've had some money. We had a little bit influx for COVID money, which really helped out. We use that money for a lot of really good things, and the money's kind of dried up. And now with the budget shortfalls we're having, I'm really worried that if the bond doesn't pass, what we're going to look like 2-3 years down the road. But we have been doing Band-Aids. That's basically, you know, you have 3 dedicated maintenance guys, 4 schools, plus the Opal is still, that takes time. And so the guys are just constantly going from one fix to another fix, and not a lot of time for proactive work, which I really want to try to jump on. Once we get, if we get the bond, then we can get those things going. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are craft specialists?
That's pretty much just a fancy way of a fix-it guy. I
Okay.
mean, it is a craft. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I
it
was
is.
doing it. It basically just means that you can do everything, plumbing, electrical, and everything in between. I ask my guys to do a lot, and I'll ask them, hey, we've got this job to do. Like John doing the flooring in here. John's not a flooring guy, but John, he accepted the challenge, and he said, yeah, I can do it. So it encompasses everything. I mean, if you guys, you know, if you own a home, it's not much different. It's just kind of on a bigger scale. So craft specialist is just that. Lots of things that they do and cover.
So work orders, who submits the work orders?
So the office managers at each school.
Okay.
We use a web-based app called Maintain X. And everybody that works in the office, including the principals, has access to that. So when a work order comes in, work order request comes in from a staff, like a teacher or a classified employee, custodians too, they put a lot of those in. They're kind of our eyes and ears on the ground at the school. So once those get to the office manager, they go on the Maintain X app. They write up a work order, send it to me, and then I get them probably 2, 3, maybe 6 a day. And then I read over what they are, what it requires. Sometimes I'll kick back a comment, ask more questions about what, you know, so I get more information. And then I'll assign them to one of my crew. So basically, and it's a great thing that came along. I love that app. Yeah.
Good.
Because before we were doing them all by paper.
And you, of course, yeah, categorize.
Yes,
most
yeah,
important
with their
leads.
on
Well, nothing's least, but
yeah. Yeah, so they do have a prioritization button on there that there's 4 levels of it. So, and I'm constantly going through the work orders and reevaluating where they are. And sometimes I bump them up, sometimes I'll move them down. And a lot of them right now, I have quite a few that are on hold. If we get the bond passed, we can get those done.
you know, your crew, I mean, the slides are minimal to what you actually do here. I mean, you guys really keep up the campuses. And then, you know, and the custodians who are out there right now cleaning
Yeah.
the classroom. How late are they on campus? Maybe midnight?
9:30 to 10.
Okay.
So it depends on what time they start. But typically it's an 8-hour shift and they're there until that time. Yeah.
I like the backpack, man. I need one of those, for the car, the house, everything.
Yeah, no, they're really nice. Just they're very expensive.
So back to it is that, no, you guys really keep the campus, what can I say? Welcoming for our students, and I know you guys are always working, always buzzing around. And then you just tell the bus drivers I'm the goofball waving to them from the scooter, because sometimes they're like, who's this guy?
I will. Thank you. Yeah, it's
But thank them, you and the crew too.
yeah, thanks. Like I said, I'm really lucky to have this dedicated crew. I can't say enough about everybody that I've worked with. So, I mean, including the office staff too.
Right.
Pam
Oh, yeah.
and Robin and Janet Lindenbaum and obviously my boss. So it's just a really good work environment and we're all able to just work together. Really good team.
Are you on call weekends?
I'm always on
On
call.
call, so, okay.
Yeah, I got 2 calls from First Alarm last night. One at midnight, one at 1 a.m.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the fire system is another one of the things that we hope to upgrade. We've got a couple of small issues. They're very finicky. They take a lot. A big part of our budget is First Alarm. They're one of the only games in town as far as fire protection. They do our yearly and biannually inspections, which we have to do for the fire department. So, yeah.
Just wanted to also jump on and highlight again, like in your first slide, amazing. I love the honoring of the team with their pictures. Thank you for that. That helps us too.
Yeah.
But again, highlighting a completion rate of your work orders of 97.5%.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know that in
Right.
most places that's met. And I'm sure again, the ones that
I'm
are
sure it's
completed
the
are the ones
best.
that are, I'm sure it is. And the ones that are met are the ones hopefully awaiting the funding
Yes,
to actually
that's
get
pretty
met.
much all it
I
is.
believe it.
We get them all done unless it's something that we have to wait
Yeah.
and we can't afford it. So,
Yeah. And
which I'm not used to. Like I said, when I started 2020, so that was fun.
again,
It was, we had money for this and we were buying all kinds of stuff, which was great.
Yeah.
But now with this budget issue, I'm a little worried. So we're going to do the best we can though.
And as a new board member, it's really awesome to learn about the breadth of things that you do. So it's really.
I think this is the first one that obviously I presented, but the first one we've had in quite a while. So it's exciting. Thanks. I'm stoked to do it.
I like that rooftop. So Cal, like find all sorts of great things up there.
Yeah.
I think
For its age.
that the picture, yes, so
Yeah.
that's Main Street.
Oh, that's Main Street. I
That's
thought you
Main
said
Street.
Soquel. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if I did. So that picture there was the Upper Commons, which has yet to be done yet. So we did the
Oh.
library. We did the MU. But that job there was going to be huge and we didn't have the budget to do it this last summer. So 2 out of the 4 buildings, the other building would be the new 2-story building, which doesn't need a roof. So the Commons, we really want to jump on as soon as we can, because that's going to be quite an in-depth job. There's sloping roofs, there's flat roof, and it's really rotted out. So that's next.
Thank you very much. I mean, you not only have our appreciation, but every parent and student and person in the district for the job you do. It
Awesome. Thank
honestly
you.
just keeps our kids safe and getting to school and being able to do
That's the
what
goal.
we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And thank you to your staff.
I
The
will.
ones who are out there working right now as well.
That's right. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Oh, are there any questions from, I apologize, any questions from the audience? Okay. Any questions online?
There's nothing online.
Okay, thank you. Figured Carissa could probably catch you in the hallway if she.
The question.
Oh, hi, Marilyn. Yes.
Yeah. So is this yours?
I think you made it there. Actually, I think maybe I'll just give it back to George.
Actually, Give it to me. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your work. And you just said thank you for keeping us safe. And yes, but our microwave radiation Wi-Fi facilities safe? They're not. It's the article here, Wi-Fi convenience or health hazard. And how many studies show health effects? This has been done a while ago. Approximately 3,000 studies have been conducted worldwide on cell phones, cell towers, and other wireless technologies. About 70% of all studies show one or more health effects. Just ignoring this because something is popular is not a helpful thing to do.
Marilyn,
There's a meeting.
respectfully, I just make your point quick because it's not really directly connected to the item, but we're trying to be respectful. Just make.
Part of the maintenance is maintaining the wireless network. Now, my daughter, who actually teaches computers at Cabrillo at home, she has Ethernet, which is a wired technology that doesn't have these problems. And I would suggest you want solutions, do Ethernet. Do not endanger the students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, very much, Marilyn. I appreciate the suggestion. We'll definitely take that.
Okay, and another thing I saw was on the libraries. I recently found out, and this is kind of shocking to me, they've renovated and remodeled like Aptos Library, Brad's 40 Library, upgraded, etc. And I went in and I found out
that was updated. So do you have anything to say about the Main Street
I
Library?
do have something to say about, he showed a picture of the libraries.
Main Street.
They have a whole lot more computers. I was told all the books there were new. And my friends saw when they closed the Aptos Library, the dumpster was filled with books that they had discarded. And this is shocking to me. And the collection is smaller.
Okay.
That's a problem. We need books and safe places for children where they're not being irradiated. And
yes, ma'am, we couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Well, then if you agree, change policy on offering solutions here.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you. I'd like to move us on to item 8B, the discussion regarding the spring 2024 California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, CAASPP, accountability data.
All right, well, while we're getting teed up here, I want you to know that this data is hot off the presses. It was just released last week. There's a lot of work left to do diving into it, but I wanted to get it in front of you more sooner than later. So buckle in, we've got 40 slides to go. We're not going to go into as much detail as I'm sure you'd like, but we've got some things to look at together. So I'm gonna get us started. All right, so just some key objectives for tonight, and they're going to be fairly clear as we go along. We're going to look at the CAS data. There's lots of graphs, lots of data that we're going to show you about our school, our state, our county. We're going to look at some local data, and that data is relative to our schools, our specific schools. And then we're going to talk about just some general observations, implications, and next steps. However, sometimes there's questions about like, what is the CAS? What does it test? Who tests? How long does it take? What happens? So I think this is an important slide to share. It is the California Assessment of Student Progress and Performance. That's what it stands for. It's a summative assessment. It's administered at the end of each year, typically about 30 days prior to the end of the year is when it's administered in this district, but it can be administered earlier than that. Many school districts do it as early as the beginning of April. The subjects that are tested are English language arts, math, and science, and those are the respective grade levels that are tested for each of those. And the computer, it's a computerized assessment, and some of it is computer adaptive. Like if you're doing better, it'll give you harder tasks. And then some of them are just straight responses where students are typing in a response. So that's kind of what it looks like for students. When you take a look at some of the data today, you'll notice that there are achievement levels. There are 4 achievement levels on the CAS, starting with level 1, which is the lowest level, and up to level 4, which is the highest level. So where we want to be when we're looking at this data today is level 3 and level 4 indicators that are the standards met or exceeds levels. And this information is just kind of really important to keep in mind, because when we, and I'll share a report with you at a future board meeting when we talk about iReady assessments, we're still talking about some of those same types of levels. So how did the state do this year? It's really important to note that the state of California this year has come out saying, like, we've done really well this year. We've made so much growth this year, and I want to really kind of burst the bubble on that a little bit. I've got a letter that was published by the California Department of Education recently to talk about where there's been growth. But the fact of the matter is that overall, the percentages of California students meeting or exceeding standards in English language arts and math increased from 46.7% to 47%, which is only a 0.3 growth in the state of California for English language arts, and for math, 34.6 to 35.5, which is less than 1 percentage point, and for science, 30.2 to 30.7, which is a 0.5 gain. I didn't put all of that in on this slide because this letter was just generated after our Friday posting of the board documents. That said, this is where the state currently lies in terms of English language arts and math. Those are overall scores. I'm going to give all of the board members here this folder. And the reason for this folder is because as I go in on the slides, you'll notice that when they were, the slideshow was made into a PDF, it bounced some of the number boxes around. And I don't know if you noticed that when you were looking at the slideshow, but the numbers didn't line up underneath the categories. So I want you to have an actual copy of where those numbers should lie, so there's no confusion.
Thank you.
Um,
I like the folder.
Yeah, the folder.
Well, you know, there you go. I aim to please. And this is where the state percentages were in science. As we go into the more detailed description of and drilling down a little bit, you'll see that our state and our county have scores lower than our district. You'll see that represented. So how did we do in English language arts and math? And I'm navigating 3 screens here. So if you see me looking around in multiple places, that's why. So I apologize in advance for that. So here we go. So in our data for our district, we're at 54.04 for English language arts and math. And so if you kind of went back to those previous slides, you'll say, well, we are doing better. Jessica's right. She's not lying to us. We are doing better. Doesn't mean that there's not lots of places for us to look for improvement, but it is a good sign. And this is our detailed ELA by grade. And so what you'll see when you take a look at this slide is you'll see that the blue and the green bands, that's what we're looking for. So we want more of those. And so you'll see some tiny fluctuations in those numbers over the grades. So we see for the most part, a pretty even trajectory for English language arts last year. And this was all students last year. So students in 4th grade last year just had a little bit of a difference, a little bit of less students meeting or exceeding standards. And when we look at correlative data, we also noticed that when we were looking at some of our risk screeners, that we'll look at with, Chris and her student services team this year, you will have remembered that fourth grade group last year had a higher level of high risk screeners. So we're just looking, you look at data with multiple lenses, right? This was by grade in mathematics. And what you'll see is kind of as the grade levels go on, a building of the skills up through elementary, and then kind of a big change going into 6th grade and 7th grade, and then them finishing off in 8th grade. And so we're looking at what are the reasons for that. The standards obviously are really different from 5th to 6th grade. That's something that we know. But how do we respond to that? And that's something that we're always looking at. So the next screen is just a different representation. So it's grade levels over time, which then you could kind of consider as a cohort group. So in this particular slide, you'll see that this was grade 5 in 23-24. And then the data, so if you're all the way in the column on the right-hand side, that's what you'll see. If you go to 4th grade, it'll be 22-23, and then the next column over to your left will be grade 3, and that's 21-22. So this is the same group of students over time in each of the performance levels. So you'll look at the blue, the green, and the yellow and orange. And what we always want to see is that the orange is getting smaller and that the blue and green is getting bigger. And so those are kinds of things that we're attending to. Like this same group of students over time is being asked to do more and more in school because the standards are harder. And are they keeping up? And that's kind of, always going to be one of our goals. I'm not trying to go through super fast, but I'm kind of going through a little fast. And this is the same information for grades 3 through 5 students. So again, how the students last year in 5th grade would have done in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, and looking at that data with a really critical eye to see, are we moving more kids out of the orange? Are we not moving more kids out of the orange? And this one, is a little, it's got some funny data in it, because what we can see is we can say, oh gosh, well, kids moved out of the orange in 4th grade, but more of them moved into it in the next grade. So, what are the things that we want to do? All right. This is the same type of graphic representation, but this is the middle school grades. So this is the 8th grade students from last year, 7th grade the year before, and 6th grade the year before that. And we do notice that our oranges in this one are moving down, and that's a really good sign. But so are our blues and greens. So we're finding more kids in the yellow range, right? And so why is that? What do we need to do? And so we're just thinking about what that means in terms of how we analyze the data and respond to that data. The next screen is the same type of representation, but for the subject matter of math. And I apologize, I'm looking at 3 screens at the same time. But you don't see a lot of change in this one. This is one that I just thought was really an interesting anomaly. Like, kids were really consistent over time with math. So this graphic is one that I provide to the board every year with the omission of 2 years. And those were the years that we were not tested due to COVID. And you'll kind of see, it's not easy to see on the screen, but where the colors are the same, those are the same students. Right? And so this was the cross comparison of year-over-year data from 2015 until the current year. And so what you'll see is you'll see, well, there's some drops in some of those scores, but that 3rd grade group certainly came in a little bit higher than the 3rd grade group the year before. And so that's good news to us. This is the same for math. And you'll see some comparable scores, but this third grade group in math last year, you'll see a dip where they went up in English language arts, and that was super noticeable. Not the same for the third grade math in that year. So just something good to take a look at. We look at, you know, students in the same grade. We look at kids across the grades. We, you know, do kinds of some analysis related to, you know, over time change. And we know that we're not at pre-COVID numbers. There's very few districts that have recovered their pre-COVID numbers. So what does it look like for us in science? So this is our district in science. And in a previous, I think Friday update, I shared with the board some of the science data, the preliminary data that had come out. And our science data looks really good. It looks really good across other districts in our county. It looks good within our county, and it looks good across compared to the state of California. The other thing to note about this one is look at how much yellow there is. That means that they're nearing the standard, and that's also something that we like to see and like to dig in on that a little bit. We can look at cut scores and things like that with individual students, so we can see how many kids are close to the green too, and we're always kind of looking for that kind of thing. So these are the results by science. In science, since the students are only tested in grade 5 and grade 8, it means that the students have to remember everything that they learned in science in elementary school to be tested in 5th grade, and the same for middle school. So everything they learn in 6th, 7th, and 8th, they have to remember by 8th grade. So they're not just tested on 1 year worth of information. It's a compilation of what they've learned over time. And that's a hard test. It's a really hard test. And so you'll see some differences too. We've got about 50% mastery for our 5th graders, and we've got just over 30%, around 30% for our 8th graders. And the 8th grade content standards in science are quite high. It's very rigorous. So what do we think about ourselves when we look at the comparative data? Well, we think we're looking pretty good. This is one thing that we can say, you know, the county of Santa Cruz in the area of English language arts is actually less than the state of California. And that's something that I know the county is looking deeply at. Every district in the county is looking deeply at their data to determine causes and implications for that. The state of California had a little bit of growth last year, but not even equaling 1%. So it's really marginal, but we're still ahead of that game. The numbers on the bottom, that's where I was kind of trying to tell you, they kind of threw off when it PDF'd. But 54.04 is us, and then 42.06 for the county, and 47.04 for the state. This is the comparison data in the area of math. 40.76 for us, 31.52 for the county, and 35.54 for the state. So some really interesting data to take a look at. This is the science comparison. So we're a good 10% over the county and the state in the area of science. All right, so the next 4 slides are going to be talking about our student groups. And these are groups of students who are similar in characteristic, and we've highlighted because of their demography and in terms of being an underrepresented demographic. So the first one is the ability groupings. I gotta come over here. I can't, the numbers get a little smaller when I put 2 on the screen. And you're going to see over these next 4 slides kind of some startling numbers. I just want you to be like really thoughtful about looking at this data because there's reasons that we share this subgroup data. They're not just marginalized classifications of people in the state of California, but they're continuing to really show areas for us to grow in our work about serving them and closing those gaps. So the first one on the left-hand side, you'll see the students that have reported disabilities. And the two boxes on the right-hand side will be students with no reported disabilities. So you can take just in that very brief look and view that 59.89% of the students in English language arts were in the meeting or exceeding standards if they had no reported disability, and only 14.29 if they were in English language arts, and the numbers are not any better for that. They're in fact that are worse. Interestingly, we can talk more about, you know, some of this other data that we're finding, but what we're finding is that students that come into our system as early learners in TK and K have a higher level of math aptitude when they are classified with disability than they do later on. Something interesting.
Would you mind saying that again?
Yeah, I know.
I want to make sure I understand. Sorry.
So because we have really good diagnostic data beyond CASP, because CASP is one shot, right? 1 minute at a time. But when we test students early on in TK and K, if we administer the iReady assessment or other kinds of FNP assessments or other assessments like that, you don't see the big gap in TK and K with math. You actually see a higher score in math for students with disabilities than you do in the general population. And that number continues to decrease over time. So the gap gets larger. That's something that we're noticing. And that's not something that we are going to ignore, right? It's not inconsistent. It's something that's fairly consistent. And why is that, right? And this is ethnicity subgroups, and they're the two largest subgroups that we have in our district, or the two largest groups we have in our district, white and Hispanic. Those are the two largest groups we have in our district. And you will see there is disparity. There continues to be disparity in these two groups that is something that is not related to their socioeconomics, and it's not related to their English learner status. So I just want to be clear, it's just classified as Hispanic, so it's ethnicity only. And I think that's important to say out loud. The next one is economic groupings. And the economic groupings are basically you're either low SES classified that way or non-low SES. And so we'll see that there's not as big of a disparity, but there is still almost a 50% disparity, which is still fairly large. Student language subgroupings. This graph is a little bit more complicated, and the boxes get a little bit smaller, and that's because we've broken it down into 3 component levels. The first is if the student currently is an English learner. That's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it's if the student ever was an English learner. So those are students who might have been reclassified, so they're included in that group. And then the bottom one is English only students. So you'll see that the English learners number of proficient students is lower. If they ever.
Whoa, busted a wheel.
Yeah.
Whoa. Take my shoes off.
No, we're taking your shoes off, dude.
We're Steve.
I think it's just a caster. Let's just turn it over and pop it back in there.
Hey, I'm okay. Everybody.
Oh, sorry. Keep on going. Right then.
It's this one.
Okay.
I know this information is scary. I didn't mean to throw everybody up in their chair.
I guess we needed to give you a break. Just take a breath. You've been doing great running through all this. Yeah. What was the name of that app?
Jenna, maintain it.
Board president to fix his chair.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do the floors. now.
Yeah, exactly. Chair's fine.
Yeah, no, it just needs to get hammered in there.
Oh, wait, hold on, now you've got to go there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Had to get attention.
All right.
Whoa, wow.
You need pets.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
I am so sorry. And so.
Yeah, you made the chair fall. No, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the next slide has to do with the LPAC, and that's the assessment of language proficiency for English learners that come into our district. And so on the right-hand side, you'll see kind of where our students are in terms of levels 3 and 4. So those are the highest levels of overall proficiency in language acquisition and English language acquisition specifically. And then the bottom graph will show where we stand in terms of comparison with our district, our county, and our state. And so you'll see again that the numbers of students that we have at levels 3 and 4 are higher than those two categories for those other two, the county and state. So CAS data by site, and this is always something that I like to share, but I always want to be really conscious about looking at this data. And I did add a slide this year that was just important to add about setting the context for looking at this type of information. Because I think it's really important to be really clear about all the variables that go into looking at data of any type. But more sensitively when we're looking at our own students in our district and our own staff in our district. I just want to give everybody a minute to take a look at this slide and make sure, you know, that I don't want to be reading it to you, but just make sure that you know all of the factors we consider when we're looking at that. I think there are two components of this setting context that are critical is really thinking about this, the second to the last paragraph. And that really speaks to our work on equity, really understanding that well. And then the last part, because we know that every one of our staff works unbelievably hard, serve every student every day. So this is SoCal Elementary, English Language Arts and math data. And you can take a look at this data and it will show you at the top the overall data where there's growth and where there may not be as much growth. In English Language Arts, there's growth of 4%, which in this climate, knowing that the California state is like really celebrating even less than 1% as progress, I see this as good progress. The negative 10%, I want to put into some context because the last year, SoCal L's percentage of math proficiency went up by over 17% in 1 year. So this is still a lot of growth being shown. And I wanted to make sure, because I know you don't always remember year to year where schools have been. But also we take a look at, you know, grade level data where the students have exceeded and met standard and kind of trying to look at, you know, some of those kiddos in that yellow area. How many kiddos are getting close? For Santa Cruz Gardens, English Language Arts and math data for 2024 overall in ELA went down by 4%. That's a question, you know, that we have. And up just slightly by 0.8 in math. And what you'll see from school to school is where there might have been emphasis, there might have been more growth, right? And so there's just questions that we ask about that. And that's natural. It's very natural. Main Street Elementary had a little bit of a dip in both areas, 61.73% in English Language Arts and 52.28% in mathematics are still very, very high scores. And so, you know, a dip is certainly not what we want to see. We want to see that upwards trajectory. but still very solid scores. New Brighton 55.46 in English language arts was a dip by almost 3%. And then a tiny uptick in the math side. And when we looked at one of those previous slides, we could see there was some fluctuation in those math standards going into 6th grade specifically. That's where we saw, some bigger concern. Okay, so here we are. I told you we'd get there. So there are some implications for us. And I think it's important to note these implications are implications for us today. This data is just fresh off the presses. There are lots of things that we're going to be doing and looking at in the immediate, days and months ahead to really think about how to serve our students and how to provide our staff and families with the right supports. But a couple of the things that we took notice of is that, our English language arts and math scores, they do continue to be higher than the state and the county. That's great. We want them to continue to be. But where we see subgroups of students and groups of students not being successful, those are predictable groups. And we are constantly trying to figure out how to change the trajectory for those predictions that we unfortunately continue to have to talk about. And so really looking at those groups specifically on the screen. So the next part of it is just like really thinking about why are we predicting it? Why can't we predict away from it, right? What are the things that we would need to do differently? We need to just kind of analyze local data more so that we can turn faster. Having a CAS data set once a year is not enough for us, and to have really good data cycles in our schools is going to help us and provide us an additional critical lens. And there are good data cycles that happen across our schools. But I think with fine tuning those and kind of responding to those differently, I think we'll be highly successful. Looking at supplemental materials, and we did that with literacy over the last 2 years, and looking at how to do that in the area of writing and math, I think will really help as well. And we have a great stewardship team and really great subcommittees that are working on these things right now. Having just met with the New Brighton math leadership team yesterday, who have already come up with an action plan for math for their year, is really exciting, and we'll continue to do that kind of work. And looking at instructional minutes alignment, like how much time are we spending teaching math, teaching reading, teaching writing, all of those kinds of things. Because we know that kids like to do the fun stuff, right? And so we have to balance that. I happen to think math and writing are really fun, but I'm also 54. So but just trying to look at how to increase those high leverage strategies so that when we're teaching those subject matters, the kids are really engaged with it. Ooh, I pressed a button that I should not have. Okay. Patience and perseverance. This is the name of the game. I mean, this is something that we're, every educator will tell you. This does not change in a minute. It takes a lot of work over time, but it can have a magical effect if we just really go slow and thoughtfully on this. And just some next steps. They're not just one. These are some of the next steps that we have in mind that we've kind of dialogued about over the past just couple of days since seeing the data. A lot of these are in place already, and it's just really honing them in. I think are going to be just the next step for us. But I think the second one, I think, is really critical, the multiple measures to affirm data validity. Because we do see sometimes there's false negatives and false positives, and that did come up in our math leadership team meeting yesterday. And that was the kids scored this on iReady, but this is what they scored in CAS. Which one is right? Or this is what I see in the classroom. This is what I see on the CAS. Which one is right? So really making sure that we're looking at the data critically and making sure that it's valid. But that's, an ongoing process. And really using the information we have to its full potential. So we're partnering with iReady right now to do coaching training with our principals, and then doing site-by-site training to really help our staff to utilize all the tools and resources that are embedded in iReady. And then we have some amazing work that's already been done, the Racial Justice Task Force. And the walkthroughs that we're doing walkthroughs now with our stewardship team. We're going to be starting that in November and really looking at our focus students. So those students who are in the orange are students that have been identified mostly by their teacher or their site leadership team, and saying, what are we going to do to really support these students? But this is a long list, and we'll talk about them over the course of the year. The more likely to come up in our LCAT thing. I know it's a lot, but do you have any questions? I know there's lots of questions. Maybe not for today, but I know there will be lots of questions.
I have a few initial questions.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for all of this data. It's incredible. I love data. So CASP is once a year.
Yes.
How often is iReady?
3 times a year.
3 times a year.
Yes. That is how many times we give the diagnostic, but students are on iReady daily.
Yeah. And then the other data points that can be used, I mean, they're, students are taking tests and doing, are those kind of data points used as well, or are we considering using them to?
In our data dives, each site does theirs a little bit differently, but they give a full matrices of the types of assessments that they give by grade. So some of them are unit assessments, some of them are phonics assessments, some of them are writing sample assessments. And so when a grade level looks at their data with their principal and their data team, they don't just look at CASP and iReady, there's like multiple measures. So that's when we look at, like, we really have to harness the validity piece to triangulate data to really know what we need to do.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of it. Thank you very much. I liked it as well. I appreciated the slide on setting context and of course, really highlighting the incredibly hard work and dedication of our staff supporting our kids. And I recall, I think we were talking about a particular grade, maybe 4th grade, where they also maybe had showed some higher risks in one of our screeners.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's anything else that our screeners kind of tie into with the rest of the data for these other groups. Just anecdotally, I think kind of knowing, like the kids are not necessarily all right. There's a lot of kids have really been through a lot, and we're seeing a lot of students with mental health needs and kids who've suffered through adverse childhood experiences, and that seems to be increasing, and how that all fits in here.
Yeah, so that is most likely intertwined best in our LCAP, because that's when we'll talk about all of the screeners that we do and all of the data. So and if we go to the LCAP for the 24-25 school year, it was reflective of the data that some from this CASP and some from that universal screener from last year, and you'll see the same thing, right? So the best place that you can see it in one plan or package is the LCAP. But I typically we'll do a data a data update mid-year when we get the second round of iReady done, and we do our second screener done, so that you can kind of see, like, where is that? Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most formally informal way to do it. Right. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'll jump in. This really reinforces how important our summer program is to me, and the value that it has, and however we can expand that in any way to, bring equity a little bit more to the kids in our schools, and give disadvantaged kids more of a leg up, and help them in any way we can. And certainly on the reverse, I mean, I think a lot of the data is really encouraging too on how well our students that are achieving are doing, and what a great job that our staff is doing, really teaching those, the kids that might have those opportunities to excel, and go above and beyond and keep them progressing while trying to bring equity to everybody, and while still letting them push forward. I think it's a great first step. Thank you very much for, doing all this and bringing your points to us and the next steps and everything like that. And I look forward to seeing how this progresses throughout the year and what you guys draw out of this and how best to, make changes or do whatever we need to do in our schools to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Have a few questions. So you said that New Brighton has the math team have already met and they have a plan.
I'll define that a little bit better.
Yes.
So the County Office of Education has received a grant to improve math scores across the county. All districts are invited to participate in this math leadership initiative. We have an elementary group and we have a middle school group. Well, it's actually elementary and secondary group, but we don't have a high school. And so twice the County Office of Education has provided leadership seminars to the groups of our staff who we have kind of brought together as leadership teams for the middle school and the elementary school in our district. So we've met at the county twice. We've had professional development and data dives and things like that. And we've been paired with a coach to do action planning.
Okay.
So that's where it's not just, the team and we're just saying, figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of support to try to develop a plan for successful outcomes.
Do we get insight into that action plan?
You sure can. I could put it in the Friday update if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Scott does the elementary group. I do the secondary group. And it's a great thing to want to learn about because it's going to be really good work.
Yeah. Would love to. That. And then on some of the other costs on the slide with the observations and possible investigations, so, there's a few ideas on here. Are these being actively assessed, like instructional minutes or the shift in instructional practice program design for marginalized students?
They're all things that our stewardship team is kind of probing for us right now. Some are much farther along. Like some of them we've been doing for a long time and they're becoming more well developed. And some of them we're probing into more. The instructional minutes piece is one that we've been probing like since the end of last year because we were trying to figure out how much time is the right amount of time. Like we know the suggested number of minutes per day per subject, kind of deemed by the state of California. But is that right for us? Right? Do we need to emphasize something more or differently or have a different use of materials in that time? Like all of that we're kind of studying. So I think what we're noticing is more consistency on that as we're kind of studying it. But also too, it's a curve, right? Because we do have days where we have kids going to art and music and all of those kinds of things. So it's very nuanced for our district. We have a lot of additional engaging activities for kids. So it's really kind of just trying to think about that differently. And also we want our teachers to be in their classrooms with their kids doing like really important things. And so it's like, how many times are we asking them to be out of the classroom? Does that make sense? And, just lots of questions like that. Yeah.
Are there like 2 or 3 things between that list and then the next steps that are kind of actively being tackled that you could come back with in the near term to give us an update on?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that the math is huge for us. And the writing calibration is going to be huge for us. The writing calibration specifically, because our writing team is looking specifically at how to align our writing assessments with past expectations, because that's not something we've done before. And kids really need to have that ongoing practice of that kind of demand. Because sometimes it's just them not knowing how to respond, not that they don't know something. Right, and so really, those are the two that I would say are gonna be the biggest leverage points for us. So those I can definitely bring back. Thank you. I know it's a lot.
I think it's also important to highlight, I think somewhere on here you have overall scores went down, but in a small district, it's not statistically significant to me. I'm not a statistician, but you know, when you have numbers like these, there are going to be variations year over year, and they don't always mean that the students haven't learned as much as the previous year. So yeah,
It's so hard to be able to say that and make sense of it unless you kind of know numbers. But it's like it could be one kid in a class in some instances, you know, that had a bad day. It could, you know, so it's if you're talking about LAUSD when there's like thousands of kids that can represent a number, it's something different. So okay.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Hi, Marilyn.
Yes, I have some comment. I come because I feel like I want to assure a healthy situation for children and they're not exposed to toxics. And in the data here, that was quite an impressive, extensive presentation on the data. When it says iReady, what does that mean?
iReady is a diagnostic assessment that measures students' skills in the areas of English language arts standards and math standards that are California state standards. So we can determine what kids know and what they need to know more.
And what does the I stand for?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's just the title.
Oh, okay. What I would like to see in the data here is I was listening, I didn't see, is like comparison of children who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, comparison of those children who are learning in an environment that is not like in a microwave oven with Wi-Fi. And I don't consider this funny, it's quite serious.
Well, I would say I'm sure that you would like that, but the state does not disaggregate data in that way.
Well, I'm just saying, I think this is critical to add because we're talking about the assessment of children. And here are just a few of the facts, and I'll leave you with this. Often things that are not discussed or included in an issue are actually very crucial to consider. Here's some important facts here. And I taught for 30 years, elementary school children. The math was fun. It was hands-on. It wasn't computers. I didn't see autistic children. I retired in 2000. The rate of autism in the 1980s was 1 in 10,000. Today it's 1 in 59, I think more. So there's something going on that is causing this in children, and the schools have to address this issue and spend a lot of money on it. For parents who have a child diagnosed with autism, over the lifespan, it can be $3 million to $5 million. So that's, and I'll leave you with this also, and then I'll conclude this. This learntherisk.org, Knowledge Action Health. The US gives 2 to 3 times more vaccines to children than
Marilyn, I
any
have to
other
respectfully-
developed
Marilyn, you
country.
had a good question with the iReady, but you're straying again. So wrap it up, please.
Well, the kids have more asthma, childhood cancer, developmental and speech delays that we're seeing in children, ADHD, autism, and it's not a coincidence. Vaccine contains toxic synthetic chemicals that should not be injected into our bodies, such as aluminum, known to cause brain and developmental damage, even in small doses. Latex, human and animal cell.
Marilyn, can I, ask you, do you have
Mercury.
something that you can leave with us?
Yes, I'll read this with
Short
you,
course
but I
that we-
wanted to get it on the record. Be injecting children with poisons is dangerous.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Please take one and pass the rest. And I'd
So,
like to add this.
we'll give- give-
No, I,
Ted a second, and then we'll move on. Oh, any,
Nothing on email.
nothing on email. Okay.
I just want to say I was happy to see, looking at the calendar. Because I can attest to the fact that there is test fatigue, sometimes that's a lot together.
yeah.
And then also, I'm preaching to the choir, but underscoring the importance of the TK through 2 teachers and the work they do. And I know it's like what you said about the science test is actually an accumulation of everything they learned. It's not just 5th grade, but the same for the ELA and the math.
Yeah.
It's all that foundational work that TK through 2nd grade teachers do, and the importance and professionalism of those grades that sometimes people underestimate. I know you guys don't, but a lot of people sometimes underestimate the importance of that early literacy and mathematical education. Anyway, I just want to.
Thank you.
Foundation.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think all of our staff does a phenomenal job. The numbers might not reflect everything that we do.
I was gonna add, if I can public comment. I mean, in regards to your question, right, how does the core academic data relate to all of the other data and universal screener, et cetera? I would add, and Jessica mentioned, I see that in LCAP. If you come to a board meeting in March, I'll talk about it. But we haven't really looked at all of those things. Have we overlaid academic data? Attendance or chronic absenteeism, scores of the universal screener, office referrals, all of those things. Just today, I was meeting with the counselor at the middle school, looking at data for students. And we were able to drill down to like specific questions on the universal screener and look at the proportion of responses across like race and ethnicity, and for really kind of targeted pattern. And so one of the kind of next steps that you saw from Jessica was that work, that operation and kind of overlaying the data to really, it only does anything. It has a story. So we know the story of our students and their journey through different districts where we found that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to the report on interdistrict and intra-district transfers for the 2024-25 school year.
Thank you. So super important, especially in an era of declining enrollment. It's always important, but never more so than now as we take a look at the number of students coming in, coming out of our district on the interdistrict transfer process. I'd like to just set a little bit of a stage when we think about this, because this is an issue that I think would be easy to take like a really extreme view on either side, right? Like I think it'd be an easy extreme view to say on one side, like should be family centered, let the families, do what they wish, whether they live within our boundaries or not. And then maybe on the other side of an extreme view could be we're in declining enrollment. Don't let anybody go. Just say no, right? And like in most things in life, those extreme approaches don't work, right? And so the work is in the middle. And with the nuance, and I just always like to, before we dive into the numbers, just emphasize that we really do try to take a family by family approach, right? We start with an obvious, truism is that students that live within our boundaries, we want them to attend our schools for so many good reasons, for all the good reasons that we've gone over in other items tonight. But families have needs. You all have families, and I'm sure you can identify with that. And so oftentimes we meet with these families, especially at the TK and K level, because once students get beyond that, if they're on a transfer, they often continue. If you transfer into another school and you live in the same area, then you're going to get with that friend group, and families tend to want their students to remain at that school. So those incoming students at TK and K now are especially important. And so when we look at the reasons, like if it's child care or carpooling or something, I always like to emphasize to the board that we don't just go, okay, like we really delve into it. And literally sometimes, it'll be Jen and I meeting with a family and putting up Google Maps and say, okay, you say it's because of, your path of travel and, you leave for work early, so somebody else has to pick up your student. This is the level of detail we get into and we'll look at, but you're actually a little bit closer to our school. So let's think about, how that could work for your family. So we don't just take, answers on the surface. We always try to encourage families to stay in our district when possible. That said, there are valid reasons for families to request a transfer out. And so digging into the numbers now, we'll start with the biggest number. The one we always look to is like how many in total and how many out total. And you'll see that there was for 24-25 at the bottom of that page, you'll see in blue that there was a positive 14 difference. So that there were 242 students coming into our district from other districts on inter-district transfers and 228 going out. And so we always look for that first on the bottom, bottom line. And that's so that's a very, very much a positive. I think it's also important to say, like, our county is very small. And so these lines are very fluid. Like these are not, families making great trips across long distances. Typically, these are just like, sometimes they might actually live closer to the school in the other district, as the crow flies sort of thing. So that really tight geographical nature of our boundary lines in our small county definitely play a role in this. Credit to Jen, she really breaks this out. She looks at every single inter-district transfer, and so you'll have seen as the board requested previously, besides just kind of what families mark on the check boxes, we really tried to spell out some of the things they put for other reasons, so that you can have a little bit more detail in that data. And I would say the most important thing to look at, is those incoming TK and K students, because like I said, typically student transfers into our district in TK or K, the likelihood of them staying throughout is really strong, because we tend not to ever deny students who are continuing. We don't say, hey, you've been going to a school in Santa Cruz City Schools or in Live Oak, but now you're in 3rd grade and we're just going to say no to your transfer. Like that's just not something we do to families. And that's reciprocated, in districts across the county going the other way as well. So those TK and K students, we really pay special close attention to. And when there's, really strong valid reasons, we will authorize a transfer out. And you'll see that, we have almost just as many transfers at those grade levels coming in. You go to that next page, that's kind of an additional page that Jen added this year. So thank you for that. You'll see it kind of broken down for the reasons, continued attendance to remain with current school and friends. I mentioned that as a strong reason. Dual language immersion with a very special emphasis on continuing students. So no K 1st or 2nd grade students are in that demographic. So, credit to our dual language immersion program that we stopped that. Thanks to all the work at SoCal-L and the DLI program, we no longer have to say you can leave our district for that reason. Obviously, sometimes school near where parents are working, as I mentioned before, transportation and carpooling, homeschool, a hybrid curriculum. As you know, our numbers really shrank in the TK through 8 program that we had. So we narrowed that. It was a really tough decision, but we had to narrow that down to just a 6th through 8 program. Because we only had a couple students in the program at the end of last year. It just wasn't cost effective. Parents who teach in another district, obviously, if they want to bring their kids to that district, we're not going to deny them for that reason. So you kind of see the majority of how it breaks out. You can see that the majority are students who are just continuing in another district. The dual language immersion program, continuing students in grade 3 and above, and the school being near where parents work are the majority of the reasons that folks transfer out. And then on the next page, you can see that was for elementary. The next page, you can see same thing for middle school. And I think it's a big credit, to all of our schools, right? But I think in those elementary years, parents are really looking early on to kind of maybe make some customized decision. And then you can see a lot of the students come back in New Brighton, for the middle school. So the numbers were really strong in terms of more students coming in at those grade levels than going out. So big credit to the great program at New Brighton.
Is that what it is? Is it kids who are in our district who might have gone out?
That's
coming
both. It's
back?
not all that. I don't want to paint the picture
Okay.
that it's all that, but it is some of that. You know, just as one example, some of the students go to Mountain Elementary, you know, for elementary. But that's, you know, that program doesn't go all the way through 8th grade. So oftentimes, they come back to us, you know, for middle school. So it's not always that. Sometimes it's a student who never attended our school or wasn't in our boundaries and wants to come to New Brighton because they do great things, just like they do at all of our schools. So you can see the reasons are similar there. And then the next page is intra-district transfers. So this is less impactful financially, right? Because this is just between our own schools. And I will just say that our principals are great about really working together on these items, right? So it's what are the reasons? Sometimes there's a very valid reason and we vet those together. So it's never kind of principal or pitted against principal or school pitted against school. It's for the program and if that's the interest of the students. For examples, families that are really intently interested in learning about environmental literacy. Not that all of our schools do it, obviously, but Santa Cruz Gardens does it to a really in-depth extent. And so if a family wants to live in the SoCal or Main Street boundaries and wants that opportunity, that's a really good programmatic reason that we would validate one of those transfer requests. Of course, for SoCal dual language immersion. So these are programs that are specific to a particular site. But we try to really vet those seriously and make sure that there's not just a flood going to one school for a reason less than some of the ones I just described. So positive numbers on the intra-district transfers. I think you would be really impressed with the level of detail that goes into making those, especially the TK and K decisions and how we try to really understand the family's needs while also pushing back. And really advocating for families to stay in our great schools. But that, I'll open it up to questions.
One thing that really jumped out at me was the really kind of supports what I think a theory we've had for a long time is the kids moving into the district, you know, and I think out of all this data, there was one, you know, only one child moved into our district, you know, and I don't know. I know the housing here is very hard to get, very expensive area to live in, you know.
Well, and what that will mean is like often, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but that's for a family that might have, let's say, been in our district, attending our district, living within our boundaries, and then moves, let's say, into the Live Oak district and says, well, I want my child to continue attending your schools, right? And so, and again, generally, the two districts won't disrupt that if that's the reason. That's where that falls into, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great. I mean, positive number.
The numbers are,
Holy
I know,
cow.
right?
I mean, let's celebrate
It's
when
like
we
you-
can.
It's like you want to do both, right? Is you want to like really appreciate the nuance, but then also it's hard not to go to the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
What does complete the current school year? What does that mean, that reason?
So sometimes a family, like similar to the previous example, like they'll move out during the middle of the year. And so technically they're not our student anymore. Like if it's if we're accepting the transfer in, but they'll say, I don't want my student to leave in the middle of the school year, even though I don't live in your boundaries anymore. Or it could be the other way. Students been going to school in another district, move into our boundaries, but they say they love their school and we only live a little bit further away. Can we continue?
That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense if that's the highest.
Yeah.
Number of reasons.
SARB.
That's Student Attendance Review Board. And so those are like attendance processes, you know, that if the student has serious attendance issues.
Okay.
So in other reasons, you have teacher in district, they're following a teacher or their parents?
They're like their parents a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, like my mom teaches at Mar Vista. And so
Great teacher.
I want my kid to go to Mar Vista with me.
Right. Well, there was a time Live Oak was refusing transfers out of their district.
I think, you know, at various times districts have tried to take that, like I said, you know, cut and dried, you know, approach. And I understand the impetus,
Yeah.
right? But as most things with human, that kind of approach really works. we need to understand the needs while also advocating for, you know, what's best for the district and trying to thread that needle.
Well, I think if Callie were here, she would really be thrilled. I think we're all happy to see. Thank you, Jen, for all that extra data. And I think that was one of those things Callie was really interested in as well. So I'm sure she appreciates the extra information. It is really nice. You guys get to meet with the folks and hear the stories and really understand at that level what's happening. So thanks for bringing us a little more of that. It's really helpful.
Yeah, and I guess if I said could say one last thing, rarely, if ever, do we ever hear it's about the quality of our schools. It's usually for all these other circumstances. Sure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Scott.
Yep, a big shout out to Jen.
Thank
All
you.
the hard work on that.
Totally. Thank you, Jen. Obviously. Moving on to the discussion regarding updates on the LCAP.
Okay, well, this is just my standard LCAP bite. This one specifically this week is related to goal 1, action 1.3, and that's iReady. And you know, we talked a little bit about iReady in my first item tonight. But I just wanted to share kind of a little glimpse of what we're seeing in some baseline data at the beginning of this year. I'm not going to give you a lot of numbers. I'm going to tell you though, overall, our baseline data this year is higher than last year, which shows us that our kids are starting higher, which also means that our, you know, while our kids left us in the spring and we had some information about them, we are more encouraged about where they're starting this year than when they started last year. So that's really great to see. The highest level of baseline growth is at the middle school level. So we're seeing some of the work from the elementaries pay off as the kids are kind of matriculating up, which I'd love to see. The stretch growth and the projected growth by the end of the year, or outcomes by the end of the year, are a better number than as predicted at the baseline last year. And so that's also really great to see. We see some really good momentum in that. Some other things that you might want to know is that the domains where our kids are scoring highest are high frequency words, phonics, and vocabulary literature. And where there's some areas for growth overall in ELA is informational text. Not something that's really, it's very difficult for all people, even us. Math domains where kids were doing really well at the baseline were measurement and data and algebraic thinking. And interestingly, numbers and operations and geometry were lower. Numbers and operations are number sense, place value, those kinds of things. So just little tidbits. The numbers of ELs starting the year at the proficiency range is higher than last year. So their baseline data is looking better than it did last year. And then we look at some other kinds of things that at this stage of the game. And we're looking at how many students are going into personalized instruction and how many are passing their assignments. So if I score at a certain level, I'm put on my path. I get to practice the skills that I have not quite mastered yet. The passing rate is what we care about. And so what we're noticing at the beginning of this year is that students are passing their English language arts at 84% pass rate, which is really high, but in math, 92%. So as they're getting these lessons, they're really doing it. And we're seeing a lot of good potential with how many more students we're seeing engaged in those iReady Mind Path assignments. So that's really good information, and it's really good for our kids to know too. Like we can tell you're really working hard when you're engaging in this time. The other thing that we've made available to families this year is iReady at home, kind of unilaterally, so that kids don't have to practice next to their neighbor when they're learning from their teacher. They can do it at home. So
Great.
Just a couple of updates on iReady. I think it's a really valuable thing for our district, a really valuable tool for our district, and one that we're continuing to learn more and more.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you for that. Any questions from the audience? Anything on email? Wonderful, thank you. Moving on to the discussion regarding board policy 0510, school accountability report card, first reading.
Board policy time. Sometimes our practice has to catch up to a policy. And that's, that takes a little bit more, effort. In other cases, our policy just has to catch up to our practice in a good way. And this is one of those cases. And so there's a couple of main items why this policy is being recommended for an update. It adds language that requires us as a district to require in any language of which 15% or more of our students speak. We already do that. It's already a traditional practice of ours. So the practice is already matching the new update to the policy, which is good. And then the other one is this may seem super obvious, but to publish it in a practical and understandable way. And so we think that we already do that. We use a system called DTS that we use for a lot of our other plans. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so getting into then what that looks like in the policy. And one thing I'm sorry that I forgot and that we will add for the second reading is in that first line. We always like to say when we make an update, the SUESD governing board. So my apologies for getting that. It will be in the second reading. Other than that, there's some language there. Instead of calling them report cards, they're recommending just calling them what we call them, and those are SARCs. That is the common terminology across the state. And then just rewording that language about the 15% or more for a single primary language other than English. We already do that in Spanish. And then making sure that they're in a understandable and uniform format, which you can go onto our website and see that now. And so those are the changes being recommended for the policy governing our SARCs. Pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Scott.
Spanish and understandable format.
Perfect.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience?
Pro understandable.
Make it make sense.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email. Excellent. Okay, moving along. 8F, the discussion regarding annual curriculum updates.
Hey, well, thank you. So good to be back.
We missed you.
So this is an update, and it's a little bit different than my typical annual updates, because usually I'll just kind of talk to the board about things that we might consider adopting or things that we might consider adding in terms of supplemental materials. But there's a reason that I changed the tone of this and the content of this. But before I do, you'll notice in your pink folder, the attachment that says there's an attachment at the bottom wasn't attached. So it will make more sense when you see this. And if you'd like a copy, there's one. So it's this document right here. It looks like there's a spreadsheet on this or matrix on the front and one on the back. I got excited looking at social studies. Sorry. I know it's spoiler. Very exciting to see that too. And so the reason that I decided to present this to the board tonight, and it really is for the public too, to understand how we get our frameworks, how we get our standards, and how we get curriculum. Because I think people just say, like, we want something new to teach with. Well, can we get it? And that's not how it works. And so this document is kind of like a one-stop shop about explaining like how that works. So content standards, they don't just change overnight. They typically will change because there's been a legislative initiative that says like, this is really important to us right now. And we want to make sure that it's taught in schools and that there are ways of us looking at it. And then from standards comes frameworks. It's like, how do we want to teach this? And that's typically associated with the legislative funding sources. So they say, this is what we want you to teach, but we know it's going to take some money and we want you to teach it a certain way. So we're going to create a framework for it. After that, then they get published and the state of California gets to see them, and it happens in every state. And then publishers start to take a look at that and they say, well, we want to create something that addresses those standards and it meets the obligations of the framework and we want you to buy it. And so we're going to send it to the State Board of Education to take a look at to see if it's worthy. The State Board of Education has a timeline and a process that they look through all of that with. And then they say, these are the ones that we give our thumbs up to, and these are the ones that we don't. And then it's a school district's responsibility to look at that and say, okay, those are your recommendations. We're either going to purchase those or not. And if you don't purchase those and kids don't meet standards, then you're financially and you have some liability with them not meeting those standards because you didn't choose something that the state recommended. So that's kind of like how the system works. But in our district, I think it was important for the board to see, like, this is what the state board did in all the content areas. They either wrote standards for them or not. They created a framework for them or not. And then they made some, adoptions of curriculum or not, and what years. And they're old. That's something that I want the board to notice.
Right.
And because it takes so long to get from this column, like the content, over here, because there's so many bodies that have to take a look at this over time, that it's typically a 5 to 7 year gap between the time they start and they finish. And so sometimes I know like families will say, like, how come this book seems so old? Because sometimes it is, right? Because this process takes such a long time. And so on the back side, you'll see this is our district, right? So we know what the state has done. And by the way, they don't have a framework for everything. They don't have standards for everything. So we kind of have to wing those, which we don't like to do. But when we do, the timeline gets shorter. But this has been our time. And so it's also important for the board to see, like, we've attended to these. We've fallen in line where we should. Where we know we have a need, we have made some decisions. And so there's a couple of those that I wanted to make mention of. One, and the board knows about this really well because I've talked about it. I get on my soapbox every time I can. The social studies materials are just not up to par. They're just not. And we've made some decisions about that. That we created a bridge plan 2 years ago to address that. I made a copy of it so that you guys could take a look at it. And I think it's a good bridge plan. It mostly uses primary source documents to do it. We also have a lot of really great teacher created materials over time that does not have engendered language and does not have derogatory language, which we see in a lot of the curriculum. And then the other decisions that we've made is when we had to bolster our content areas with supplemental curriculum like literacy, we've done that. And where we're looking at needing some supplemental materials in the area of mathematics, numeracy, specifically in our early grades. That is another area. And then we have recently had, and it's not addressed in here, had to address cursive writing and handwriting in schools, which isn't addressed in here, but we have to, as a district, attend to that because that's federally legislation has changed. I just wanted to give you a kind of a visual of what that looks like, but also to do kind of a little lesson, just because I think it's complicated. Is it helpful?
No, it's great. Yeah, absolutely. I love seeing this.
That's wild that California's latest content standards adoption for history and social studies was 1998.
That's yeah. The framework is newer, but the framework is the how and the lens, but the standards are So when we take a look at a system, an educational system, and we ask questions about it, that's a really big question. Like, how come it's 26 years ago? We've changed. So just stuff like that.
Thank you very much. That's very informative.
So the adoptions are basically books, right? Physical books, not digital.
They can include digital books. So typically a textbook will match a digital book. So if you purchase one from a vendor, you get the other one. curriculum also includes teachers' manuals, assessment manuals, other kinds of instructional support materials, like for English learners sometimes, or, you know, other groups of students, like maybe it's in multiple languages, or gives coaching handbooks for kids that are just below grade level and need intervention. So the curriculum can include a lot of things.
So with the digital age, you think the curriculum will be more up to date if we just went digital instead of books?
Publishers are a funny group of people because
Yeah.
they like you to buy their books.
Oh.
And, and you know, not everybody is on the same playing field in terms of technology availability. We are a district that is very rich in technology. We have one-to-one. Not all districts have that luxury, not all families, especially for more rural communities who, even if they had a digital book, might not be able to have Wi-Fi that could actually get it to them. So there's just a lot of complexities with that, but I do think that the marrying of the hard copy and the electronic copy is something that we'll continue to see for at least the next seven years. And that's kind of, in my estimation, about the length that you should even hold.
I guess where digital would be able to be capable of being updated swifter than printing books.
And you are right, and it's a good point, and I'll just mention.
Wait, can I have that writing?
But publishers, they publish, you know, you have version 1, version 2, version 3, and they can easily make that change electronically when it's, you know, when it's electronic. But when it's a paper copy, the book itself, sometimes those books are $120 a piece, right? And you're not going to want to spend another $120 for the 1,500 kids that are in your district, right? So it's not super cost effective to rely a lot on print material, but that's what it is.
Start doing your own books, you know, like the colleges and the professors, they publish their own books and then charge a whole bunch of money.
You know what? I've thought about it many times. Especially social studies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was amazingly brilliant.
I love that. Can I go home now?
It was written right on the folder you gave us.
It's really funny.
That's great. Any more questions? Any questions from the audience? Anything on email?
Nothing on email.
Excellent. Moving on to action items. We are moving 9D to the top of the list. That is to consider adopting the resolution in support of designating November 2024 as Homeless Youth Awareness Month.
Thank you. So I'm going to introduce this. Chris is here, and I'm going to make sure she has the opportunity to add anything because she's done a lot of work on this. And I just want to say I totally applaud moving it up. When we put items in order, I want to make clear that we never are like diminishing anything because it falls later in the order. That's not the intent.
Of course.
So this is a really important resolution. We know that families are in all kinds of different places, and as a public education institution, we support them all. The real work comes into having better data and to really truly identifying the broad definition of what homeless is. Homeless doesn't just mean, you know, that stereotypical definition of living on the streets or something. There's lots of definitions, including when families have to double up because of certain situations. And that collecting that data properly takes a lot of work and intentionality. And Chris has really been instrumental in making sure that that work is done, working with our IT department, George and others, and making sure that when students are enrolling and parents are registering, that data is collected in a more detail-oriented way. And so you will see a big increase in the percentage of students identified under this category, but it doesn't mean just all of a sudden that it happened. It means we're collecting better data now. So in asking you to pass this resolution, it's raising awareness on how important it is. And I think it's just important to also know that intentional work is being done to make sure that we identify the right families so that particular funding sources can be used to better support them. And I'd love to invite Carissa to add anything to that.
Scott said it well, you know, it's last year we had, I think, 2 students identified as being homeless under the McKinney-Vento definition. At last check the other morning, I looked and I think we're at 18 or 20. And it's not that, in fact, most of those students who were in our district last year, if not all of them. But as Scott said, we have just been doubling down on our efforts to appropriately identify them. Big thanks to Erica Cortez at our County Office of Ed. She's a big partner for us and has really supported me in kind of doubling down on our efforts in this area. And then big thanks to George and also our office managers, because they are the ones who do the hard work. I do the easy work of asking them what to do, and then they actually have to do it. So yeah, as Scott said, right, we wanna have better data to know how our students are doing, what they need, and then use the resources that we have to meet those needs to kind of level the playing field for all of our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
no,
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah. And, no, this is to me, this is a great resolution. I want to bring up front, because I usually have my dessert for dinner. And, so there was a whereas where without high school credential are 346% more likely to experience homeless than their peers. So 346%.
Yeah,
That's a
so
big
it's,
number.
the statistics are really staggering.
Yeah.
So talk about, it's easy to think maybe just about the immediate impact of a student in condition. But then when you think about what we, call the opportunity gap, right? Big picture for our students, implications are so significant. And so Scott kind of alluded to this, but really helping to double down on the traditional perspective on a homeless student is a student who's unhoused, and the definition is much more expansive than that, right? It's students who have had to move in with another family or family member into foster housing, in inadequate housing with without property improvements and things like that. Living in a house, living in cars, living in RVs. And so you think about all of that and the impact that can potentially have on students for a long time. It's pretty staggering.
Yeah, I know next month we're gonna have more of a presentation on how we're helping the students and what goes through with it too. And I like the fifth whereas. It's just face challenges due to high levels of school mobility, residential mobility, educational disruption, and so on. So, and then even reading some of the CSBA updates, man, it's just crazy out there.
Yeah.
So, thanks, everybody. So,
And
it's pretty interesting too. The whole Ronald Reagan brought in the act in '87 with Stuart McKinney, who's a House of Representative, which is kind of crazy that President Reagan did when he did away with the funding for mental health in California. So I find that just fascinating.
just to add a little anecdote, I'm on a committee, a scholarship committee, and to show you how important schools are in the whole thing. Last year, great high schooler, his name was Scott. He was housed in a shelter for a little over 2 years, and he would get up every morning, go to the high school. This is at Salinas High School. He would go to the library at Salinas High School. He would be there for hours before school, and the school opened up their library to him and made it available to other unhoused students. And he would spend 2 hours there before school and as long as he could at night. And he ended up graduating Salinas High School with a 4.5 GPA, ended up getting a full ride to Cal Poly, despite unbelievable, really unbelievable hardships in his life. And I mean, kudos to all of our school districts and us recognizing how important this is and giving the support with all the support we can to these kids.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah. So any more questions from the board? Any-
Well,
oh.
I'm gonna talk, but it's
Yeah.
not really a question, but yeah, I mean, a comment. So I appreciate that we are considering this resolution, that we're bringing awareness, continued awareness, and we've talked about this before, but I think there are still out there in the broader community misconceptions about what it might mean to be unhoused or to be homeless and the definition of a homeless student. And I think in this time when we're continually talking about a housing crisis in our area and the high cost of housing, I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that our kids are facing when they are in the situations where they're having to double up or triple up with other families or relatives, or you know, do kind of couch surfing as a family, things like that. So living in a garage that does provide a roof over your head, but might not have, you know, a bathroom connected to it. All of these things that really impact someone's ability to the Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like meet their basic needs so that they can come to school ready to learn. So I just appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Ted, because you keep.
Yeah, there is a stigma.
You really do keep shining a light on the issue,
there is a
and
big
there
stigma.
can be a stigma. So I think the more awareness that we bring and that hard work that you all are doing as a staff is just gonna keep chipping away at it. That's my 8 cents.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Anything
Nothing
on
on
email? This is an action item, so do we do a roll call?
Yes,
vote?
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution supporting designating November to 2024 as Homeless Youth Awareness Month.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Or-
Aye.
Okay,
Trustee Dickinson,
aye.
trustee Donnelly,
Aye.
trustee Jackson Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Gray. Aye.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, motion passes. Great.
Now you can split, right?
One more. Wow, we got you for a long time tonight. We're gonna bring a cot in next time. Thank you, Ted, for moving that up. That's terrific. Next item on the agenda is to consider approval of the wellness coach level 1, level 2 job description.
Right, so this is another one that Chris is gonna give a big assist on. I will just set it up and say this is a really exciting possible position to add to our district to better support students. And it comes with a county-based grant that will fund it. So it's the proverbial win-win. Right, can't get better than that,
No.
right? And so a lot of the work that's already been done in our district, like with the addition of counselors, and you know, we've just continued to get better to serve students in a wide variety of ways. This will just only be another brick building in that really important wall. And so, Chris, do you have anything about the job description?
So what you'll see there's 2 levels, level 1, level 2. And what's really exciting about this position is it will really underscore a lot of work that's already been happening, and but also expand our ability to address student mental and behavioral health needs, right? It's no surprise. It's something that we have talked over and over about how, especially since COVID, but before, but certainly since COVID, the need has exponentially risen, as particularly in those 2 areas, and the relationship rate between behavioral and mental health and achievement outcomes academically are very closely tied. And so, I mean, I think it was you who was talking about Maslow's hierarchy, right? And there's a fun, popular saying, you have to Maslow before you can bloom. And so, you know, Maslow, you have to meet those basic needs before you can really engage in Bloom's taxonomy of higher thinking. And so, the wellness coaches would really underscore our counselors. You know, the challenge with counseling is, right, we're always needing more support, and we have a very finite number of folks providing that support who are tremendously talented, who we are grateful to have, and a lot of work has gone into maintaining that level of support. And so to have these positions available to us to partner very closely with our site counselors, and through like our cost process, identifying proactively and affirmatively students who would benefit from that support is exciting. The kind of structure for it, right? So we receive grant funding from the COE to kind of start that process, and they would provide the supervision for folks who are not yet certified as wellness coaches to become certified. And then under the multi-payer fee schedule that is being rolled out for services such as counseling or direct services to students provided by wellness coaches, we would be able to be reimbursed through private insurance. And so really, up to 90% of the funding required to sustain those positions would be covered by reimbursement through the fee schedule. So it's very exciting for many reasons, but that is it's one of them, that they are critical and also self-sustaining.
Thank you.
So, sorry, I know there's a level 1 and a level 2. Okay.
And that seems, the difference seems education level.
Yeah, the difference is education level. So level 1 requires an associate's degree in a relevant field. Level 2 requires a bachelor's degree, and then kind of the big difference between the two roles in terms of duties they're able to perform are more specifically related to kind of assessment pieces and administration of screeners, kind of some of those activities. That's the main differentiation between the two.
And it's up to 3 positions that we would consider?
Correct. Yeah, we have funding from the COE for up to 3 for, the really nice thing I would want to add is, the grant funding doesn't have to be expensed until March 2026. And for us, that's really valuable because we don't want to just kind of put, like Steve was talking about, put Band-Aids on things, right? We want to be really thoughtful, build a really strong infrastructure and a strong system so that we're not just kind of plugging holes in the dam and running out of fingers. We want to be able to do it really sustainably and thoughtfully in an interconnected system framework. So the main thing is, right, if these are approved tonight, you won't see it posted on Edgewing tomorrow. This is an important first step for us, just in having the job descriptions approved so that when the system is built, we can post it. But we're not in a hurry in terms of, we want to be really thoughtful and intentional regarding communication and getting input from our partners in this work. All partners, right? Staff, families, students, looking at all of the data. What is it telling us in terms of needs so that we can be thoughtful in terms of allocation and building that system. It's exciting.
Win-win-win.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
You are the audience.
Yeah.
You over there in the back?
Yeah.
No?
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email. Somebody would like to make a motion to.
I'll make the motion to approve the wellness coach level 1, level 2 job descriptions.
I'll second it.
Great.
This one's not a roll call.
Oh, this is not a roll call. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed, say nay. Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything.
Safe travels.
Yeah. The next item is 9B, consider approval of board policy 6158, independent study, expedited second reading. Oh, expedited. Oh, let's go. They must have known we'd be doing this at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of reasoning about why it's an action item and an expedited item, and that is because by the state of California's requirement, it has to be an approved change to board policy before we can enact the change without it being a pilot change. So to be more specific, our independent study laws have changed. A policy has to go with that. We wanted to change our policy before we changed our practice, but we wanted to recuperate money and funding through ADA before that. And so you can legally do that if the process is a pilot process in your district prior to the board approving the board policy changes.
Oh,
There's a long way to get to, we're doing it right. And we want to keep doing it that way. So as the board knows, and we've talked about this a little bit before, there was a Senate bill that passed and it changed independent study in 4 basic ways. The first one it said you can actually start capturing ADA, not on the third day a child is absent, but on the first day a child is absent from school. And so that gave us 2 more days of ADA recoupment as a possibility. So we really wanted to act quickly. The second thing it said was that the traditional course-based independent study, short-term, could go up to 15 days. And so what it does is it actually changes it to 1 more day, which then triggers the change to the long-term independent study. And so in this board policy, you'll see some 15s kind of marked out, and there'll be 16. And then the agreement for an independent study contract has to be written, and it has to be signed at the onset of the agreement, which would mean the first day of absence, or we start recuperating ADA on the day that contract was signed or that agreement was signed. But the students can complete the work at a date following when they would return. So it used to be that they had to turn back in all of their work, and they could get credit then. Now it expands that amount of time. The last thing that it does is it used to be that students would get a big packet to do. They'd take it, the office staff would have to collect it, they'd have to go through it, the teacher would get it, they'd have to make sure that the work was all done correctly, and then they'd have to sign the contract off, and then they would go back to the attendance clerk, and then they'd have to do what they need to do. Now what it does, the state of California says, yeah, there's work to be done, but what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to use assessed time value of the time students did in completing the work. So rather than getting the big packet back, the family can say, we spent 15 minutes on English language arts, and we spent 15 minutes on math, and we spent 50 minutes on this, and they give a time value, and that's what we check for the purposes of reporting. So it gives us the opportunity to allow students to do virtual work. It allows us the opportunity for them to use online resources like iReady, iExcel, all of those kinds of things where you couldn't turn in a paper copy or a packet. Doesn't mean you can't do a packet, just means now there's an alternative pathway. And that allows us flexibility to change our process. So this board policy reflects all 4 of those changes, and it's all in one section. We kind of just pasted it right in. The only other things that are changed in this policy are the 15s to 16s. That's basically the only changes it makes. So we're requesting we're humbly requesting that the board approve these changes to board policy so that we can take our new practice out of pilot and move it into what is our district practice.
Tomorrow.
As soon as possible.
I was actually looking up who proposed this bill. I was like, oh my gosh, this is good stuff.
And it's really, and I'm going to just say, beyond, this board policy, the way that it's been constructed in our district to offer the virtual option has been a very large labor of many people. Krista included, office managers included, Lori included, myself included, this whole team included. And it does offer us the ability to recoup funding, which is extraordinarily important. In addition to offering students the ability to do work when we know that sometimes they can. If I break my leg, I can still do math virtually. If I'm at home and I have to be home for some reason that was unexpected, my parents can actually just go onto my school website. They can click on I'm not here and I want to do the virtual work, and it'll automatically go from that to the school principal for that contract to be initiated. So
that's great.
Pretty snazzy.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. And maybe it's language that doesn't need to be updated because it was existing language, but what page is this? And what page is this? Oh, here we go. 101. It says the minimum period of time for any independent study option shall now be 1 to 15 school days.
Yes,
Isn't the minimum 1 day?
the minimum is 1 day.
So wouldn't the sentence be the minimum period is 1 day? What's the 15? Because
It's-
it could be longer than 15.
Well, for us to recoup funding, it can only go up to the 15th day. So we can't recoup funding. Actually, it's funny because they changed the verbiage to be 15 days, but we can only recoup funding for 14 days per
Okay.
year. Isn't it 14? 15?
Yeah.
I don't know. We can't do it as many times as they are going to be gone during the year. We have a limited number. So that's probably why it reads that way.
Okay, that's fine. And then there's another one. Page 104, under master agreement.
Yeah.
A written agreement shall be developed independently, each student participating for 3 or more consecutive days. Isn't it
Oh,
1 or more?
I do need to change that. Thank you for catching that.
Okay, and then there were 2 other places where it looked like the 15 needs to be changed to 16.
There are some places where it needs to be the 15 because it can go from 1 to 15 for it to be a short term, and some that need to be changed to 16. But I will make sure, and those are they all match what term of independent study it is.
Okay, it's page 105. It's the 10th bullet.
Thank you.
There's 2 of them. One of the 15s is crossed out, and then the other one isn't.
On
But
page 105.
Yeah, section 10.
yeah.
Ariel, on
But
top of your
otherwise it
game,
was-
girl.
Yeah. All right, I gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. I try to go through every one of those and be like, is that a real 15 or is it not a 15?
Takes a village.
Thank you.
This is a very, I thank you for the
Yeah.
updates. This is a really hard policy to kind of read and understand. So I'm gonna be grateful that when this comes up, that the superstars in the front office will help parents navigate this. Because if you were just trying to get at it, if a parent were ever just doing the policy alone, through no fault of our own, through the way the policy has to be worded to cover all of the things,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that, yes, we have the option of click here when you need to do, when you're absent and want to do some work, and also just again,
You can just say,
can get-
watch YouTube video on 1016, go to third hour and listen to.
I will say that this bill has had a lot of iterations of expectations from the auditors. It's that many.
Yeah.
And Lori Strickmeyer in the business office has talked to our auditors no less than 24 times on this particular change to policy.
Yeah.
And within the first, I believe, week of its pilot implementation, we were at about 56% parent use. So that's huge. That's 56% more than we would have gotten before.
Yeah, wow.
So-
The money correlated to that too.
Yeah.
Funds, great.
Yeah.
Well, and the fidelity, not to go on, but like the value of the type of work that the students are going to have access to, and I'm sure we did before as well, but now again, like that 1 or 2 day absence as opposed to waiting till it's 3 or more, getting work totally tied into what they're obviously doing, all their peers are doing anyway. So long gone are the days of getting a packet of photocopied worksheets from, that.
Oh, I remember those.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And those still can happen sometimes, but in an emergency case, a teacher does not have that turnaround time.
Sure, of course.
Just can't happen.
It's good across the grade levels. I would say at the secondary level, it's like even tight and tighter because so many of our teachers use Google Classrooms anyway. And students, when they're out, want to keep up on their assignments, and this can be what constitutes that independent study. So it's just, it wins educationally and financially.
Yeah.
It's a
Wow,
big,
cool.
big opportunity.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
I like it.
Yeah.
That's why.
Fantastic. Anything online?
Nothing.
Great. Would somebody like to propose the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve board policy 6158, independent study.
I will second.
This is a roll call.
No.
No, great. All those in favor of considering approval of board policy 6158, say aye.
Hi.
Any
I'll
nays?
say aye.
Thank you. Any nays? Fantastic. The motion is passed.
Awesome. No.
I'll make those adjustments.
What?
Thank you.
No, no.
Oh, can we do one of those? All right, Curly. Well, nobody except me, like, yeah, I'm so old. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Scott, for supporting us. Right, right. Yeah. The next motion 9C, consider approval of the format and dates for community voice gatherings.
Okay, so we're on about a decade in our district of having a community forum. And that really came from just a desire to engage better with the community that we serve. And it also served as a perfect companion for LCAP input. And so in order to kind of refresh it, we've talked with the board before, gotten some input from that. And so we want to kind of rebrand it, so to speak, still have the basic intent of engaging with the community and getting LCAP input. But in a rebranding, I'm just going to kind of go through under the status part of the memo. Usually wouldn't kind of go through line by line, but I think in this case, it kind of spells it out. And then will help me not miss anything. So some of the intent here is to rebrand the event and just increase engagement. I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying, right? Is it's kind of a lot of work goes into it, and it's really important, and we want more folks engaging with it. And so call it community voice gatherings. Multiply the number of events from 1 to 4 in order to increase the convenience of attendance for busy families. Hold one gathering at each school site. But with the following schedule on, so those dates are listed out there. Increase asynchronous digital access to materials in advance of the gatherings by producing videos of the brief presentations previously held at roundtables on topics such as school meals, budgets, instruction, safety. And so really kind of lean into our digital opportunity to replicate those items. And to purposely kind of have an unmeeting meeting, to kind of decrease the structure of the event for the purpose of increasing informal discussion, which we kind of really believe is the heart of what these events should be about. So as such, scrap the roundtable format and have every district and scrap the idea of having every district administrator attend. Instead, arrange for the superintendent to attend, present, answer questions, and engage in dialogue with the community members, but also having those prepared videos in advance to talk about all the different great things happening in the district. Continue to send out the LCAP survey in advance of the gatherings and use the survey results to help guide the superintendent's presentation and elicit community dialogue. Continue to remove barriers for families by offering free childcare and food at each gathering, as we've done in the past. Video record each event for the purposes of sharing with parents and community members who couldn't attend and follow up with any questions that couldn't be answered in real time. So those are some ideas that we're putting on the table to keep the intent of the event, but kind of rebrand it, freshen it up, and increase engagement.
Who came up with the branding?
This was a joint collaboration, kind of a little subcommittee, so to speak, which Callie and Ariel joined. We kind of got together and thought of some new ideas.
I have a bit of, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just kind of a wondering about video recording the actual events and whether the committee kind of thought about how that maybe sometimes can stifle folks or inhibit them from asking questions they might feel they don't want broadcast to like unknown people who aren't in the room. Like I know that's sometimes a consideration for a meeting, like, gosh, do we want this to be in person or do we want it to be Zoom? Not with this board, I mean, in general, like in my work life or other situations, right? Like just whether there's any part of that, like whether maybe I don't know, some of the Q&A portion, for example, right? If someone really has a burning question, they want to talk about their own student's experience, but they don't want unknown people to know about that.
We're tied to that. It was just an idea. So fair questions.
And if I could just jump on that for just a quick second too, I know in my experience, there are some folks that don't want to be videotaped, police officers, things like that. And I know that's come up before with me, so maybe, I don't know how that you would work getting a release from everybody in the room beforehand or something. And then
I just wonder if it would be possible, like if it would work, still create kind of the openness of recording your presentation, but maybe not recording
having a part where it's like, okay.
Or just
we're-
record you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
up on
Yeah, and maybe it's more, maybe there's someone, here who joins to like take high level notes so that you could do a recap of some of the key questions and some of the key points without having it be like Sally Smith was asking, like the actual recording. Because I think the intent was so that people who couldn't attend could benefit from what was discussed, but I think you're right, there could be other ways that that gets shared.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Duly noted.
And then,
Sorry.
no.
We both spoke at the same time. I know it's in the intent, I'm sure, absolutely positive it would happen. It's not in the memo, but definitely we would have Spanish language translation.
Yes.
Available on the sites, right?
Should have added that in, my bad.
Well, but it's because it's a given for us, but I just want to
Right.
make sure it's definitely included. And then although not every administrator of the district would be present at each one, I assume that the site principal would be present if those about, if as much as possible, or,
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, I didn't add that in there, but
I'm just wondering,
they attend a lot of events, so I
Yeah.
was thinking of not burdening them
Yeah.
with this. I mean, it's a great opportunity,
Yeah.
but they engage a lot with their community.
okay,
And
yeah,
kind of the thought here was that this was like the district level at the school site,
got it.
but
No, that makes sense.
I'm open to input.
Whatever
On
the
that
team thinks,
note,
actually,
then
yeah.
only, if board members were gonna attend, only two, right? Or are we gonna make this I mean, we could get attend,
Yeah, you can
you know,
attend this. committee
events
meeting.
like this, we just can't talk.
It's not a
Agenda
decision
items,
making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rethinking my comment. I would totally defer to what the administrative team thinks is right as to whether or not I'm installed attends. Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question about, how does scrapping, I liked the roundtable format because to me, that's engagement when you're engaging with the parents.
Mhm.
And if you take that away, it's like somebody doing a PowerPoint presentation and nobody engages in somebody getting up there and talking for an hour.
No, well, I wouldn't get up there and talk for an hour. I wouldn't bore people that way. So the opportunity
Right?
would
It's like,
be
I think we'd lose half of our audience.
to try to make it so that it just doesn't have to be one group at a time at a specific area, that we would, open up these videos and show, what we usually show or talk about at each of the roundtables, kind of have that shown to everybody and then open up the conversation to the whole group.
And I'm probably in the minority on this, but I liked when I visited these things, I really liked the roundtables because I feel like a lot of the folks might get nervous in a big, especially some of our families who might not speak English as well as others. I've seen them go to tables with somebody who's Spanish speaking and really feel free to open up and engage and talk talk more, and feel a little bit more open. And I feel when those larger audiences, you're not going to get as many people that want to raise their hands.
Yeah.
And I still don't think it's engaging.
Yeah.
I think those smaller roundtable discussions are really profitable for a lot of those family members that have questions and do that. And I think that's, I really liked that.
Yeah.
In previous years. I felt more people engaged at those tables than I did ever somebody raising their hand in an audience of 100 people.
There's certainly pros and cons. I couldn't argue with anything that you're saying. And then I would just respectfully submit, there is a staff, considering staff burden on this. And I say that anything I ask my staff to do, they step up and do. But I also have to consider not overburdening them, right? So asking, that would require them coming out to 4 of these, and I don't want to do that. So I can't have roundtables if I'm not having all the staff that usually is at the roundtables.
What if it felt more like a round table in terms of like not Scott standing on a stage with a mic and a presentation the whole time, but like, yes, we're gonna show the videos and yes, we're gonna give an update, but then like maybe the seating itself really is like, more inclusive where it feels, it feels less like someone up there and everyone else down there, but really like we're having a conversation, like voices, conversation, like maybe if that's kind of shown in the way the room's set up, that would help people feel more comfortable.
Then
I'm
how
with
you
you,
watch a
like,
video, you kind of have everybody, if they're gonna, and I totally, I appreciate your viewpoint, but how do you get everybody to watch a video screen if the chairs are arranged in I don't know, maybe have multiple, I don't know.
Yeah, I can work through some of those details and do my best to destructure in a way that makes people feel as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, I think the key for me was really finding those and I'll just be honest, those Hispanic families that come and just don't feel comfortable, and yet they don't say anything at all. But when you visit, and I visited those tables individually, they're talking about their kids, they're engaging with, whoever's there talking to them. And I felt like that was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was an important process for them to be able to do something in a little smaller forum that might not, and then you're going to do the video in English and Spanish.
Yes.
Okay. So I attended a mass one time done in English and Spanish, and it was hours.
I won't do that.
Yeah. Oh, right. One done in English, and then right after that
Not
Spanish.
give an hour
like
presentation.
4 hours
I will
in.
not give a mass.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah.
I will do my best to replicate what you're saying, what you're alluding to is just breaking down barriers, and I will do my best in this new format.
And I know you will. You always do, Scott. We do such a great job, and I've loved the LCAPs in the past and what we've done to support everybody in our community and bring that equity to everybody. If so.
Some of the other ideas that we had tossed around, which we didn't get sort of like super prescriptive in, in saying this is what the format would be, but with things like, okay, do we have the tables by grade level? And do we give those people at the, a chance to have a conversation, and maybe we have like Post-its that they can put up some of their questions, or, so I think there are ways that it could be engaging in a similar way, but having it still be a different format. And I think also some of the intent was that some of the videos would go out in advance. So you're not showing all the videos. It might be a select highlight, sorry.
Yeah. But I've been in one too many PowerPoint presentations where you're just sitting there listening to somebody drone on, and
it won't be just by PowerPoint.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, when we were talking about it, we talked about it in the sense of, there weren't that many people last year, and what can we do to make it more accessible for people to attend? I think a lot of elementary school parents don't necessarily feel the affinity to New Brighton, so, maybe they're less inclined to come to something here. At board meetings, people can come and do public comment, but we can't respond to them. So it's a chance to actually have a dialogue and ask their questions and have, an actual response. So that was kind of what the conversation.
Thank you. And honestly, I appreciate you guys getting together and discussing this. Is there a way to maybe, instead of 4, do 2? And can we offer teachers a small stipend or something like that to come? So it's not a waste of their, and I'm just throwing out.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I will just say in the budget year that we're in, adding any kind of stipends is not a direction we're trying to move, and they're very busy. And so I think the intent of this is really to engage with district level processes and district level discussions. So I'm not shooting down the idea, but I don't think it fits in with where we're at with it right now.
Gotcha. I'm done.
Yeah.
Just
Idea of 2 could be considered, right? We don't have to go from 1 to 4. I mean, that was what we talked about for sure.
4's a lot.
But maybe we do try 2 and see how so at least it's not just at New Brighton, but it's at, an elementary school that people might feel more comfortable, more of an affinity to. I mean, I'm fine with 4. I'm also fine with, since it is a pretty radical change, trying 2 and see how it goes.
Also, that's your time too. I mean, your time's valuable. I mean, that's.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my job.
Not to mention Jen is probably going to set this whole thing up, 4 times and do all that. Maybe we can get a couple folks to. Oh, no, right. So,
I mean, obviously, anytime we do something like this, there's a lot of people that pitch in and make it work.
For sure.
So, but trying to minimize that as much as possible.
Okay. Is this set in stone? If we vote on this is yes. Can we, if we come up with some different ideas, or you do that might work, can we modify this?
I think it's kind of like a tight, loose approach, right? Like, I think there's plenty of room in there to develop it as we go. And it's like, Ariel said, most of it is not totally scripted out. I think the big idea here is to move it from a centralized district event to a school site based event. And, although I'm not asking to do 4 instead of 2, I will say, like, in the spirit, like, I'm thinking of the gardens, like, who do you pair up? But Main Street and SoCal might be a little bit easier to have a single event for 2 schools, but like, if it's not gonna be at New Brighton, like, where would the gardens go, right? So I almost say, if we're gonna give this a try, this new kind of thought process, let's give it a try, 1 per school site. So that part I think is kind of tight, and then, but there's a lot of parts.
Well, I think
in
if
there that
we're
are open
willing to do it
interpretation.
and go with that,
Yeah.
that's a good idea and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I love the idea of individual school sites and making sure those parents don't have to travel 20 minutes or 10, 15, whatever it might be, It's right down the street, it's right down the street.
Well, they could go to 4.
They could go to all 4. I know we'll probably be at 4 of them, so.
We get anybody that attends all 4, I'm gonna think of some kind of special award or something.
Great. Okay.
Thank you guys for putting all of the thought into it, really. It's a good idea, and thank you for being willing to go to all.
Love to get your opinion and then.
Oh, I don't know, I just had a passing thought and I don't even know if it's feasible, but I thought of maybe like on a Friday afternoon, when we have the short days. Then staff is already still working and families, may be able to come, but I know that some families are working.
It's the working families, yeah.
I was just trying to think of, it's if families are doing pickup anyway and staff is on site during work hours anyway, it might alleviate the stipend issue, but it does exclude people who are working during those hours. That's just my.
Good idea, thank you.
Yeah. Anything on email?
Oh, let's check. Nope.
Since we're doing 4, they could be at different, there could be one site that does that.
I was just,
Yeah. Because yes, we want to make it easier for them to go, so that's why we're doing it at 4 different sites. They don't have to go to their.
And they're all the same, so. But that just, because it's a great idea, but they're all gonna be the same, so maybe those folks that do want. That roundtable or do want that in person with the teachers and we can build this one at one school site on a Friday afternoon. And then do the other 3 school sites, in the evenings for parents that couldn't get off during the day to attend that one or. A lot of moving pieces.
It does almost make it too complicated, but
Right.
it
But it gives an
It's an
option
idea.
to parents that,
Yeah.
because you're right, if a mom's picking it up, maybe the mom or dad wants to come in and could do something along those lines too. But yeah, a lot of moving pieces, so let's,
I prefer keeping them in the evening. I think
Yeah.
there's just kind of an equity piece of if the idea is we want it to be at a person's.
what
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Not safe, not safe.
I hurt myself when I
There's a
think,
shark
so I
right behind you.
can't
I can't.
There's a shark?
Your head was like right by that corner.
this is not childproof.
I'll start wearing my helmet.
All right, so
I just think it's fair to
Yeah.
everyone to like have it at the
Yeah,
same
that's
time as
true.
opposed to like,
That's a good
oh
point.
gosh, but I have a student in TK and so my real like tight connection is with this particular
Right.
school and then feeling like, oh man, the one at my school I can't go to. I don't know this.
Right.
I get the intention behind it, but maybe since we're just starting with all these big changes, trying to keep it same thing.
and I think to Scott's point, it's just kind of moving this forward.
Yeah.
At
let's
this
see-
point in
let's see how
time.
it goes. We're gonna learn a lot. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
so,
like the idea.
great, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the format and dates for the community voice gatherings. Second.
Great, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, the motion passes. All right, any correspondence?
No, nothing that I am aware of.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Oh, wait a second.
Right. Sure.
Wow,
Good job, President.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of your help. It's a big team effort. Thank you.
It's a good laugh. Kelly will be proud of you.
Thank you.
I like that. All our in.
For DR.